Am I live? I think I'm live. Sorry, y'all. I'm finishing up some fruit snacks. I think I'm live. I think y'all can see me. I'm just finishing up some fruit snacks because I got blood sugars. I am a type 1 diabetic, and my blood glucose was going a little low just prior to me beginning the stream, and I thought that might not be a very good recipe for the stream's longevity. Although, you know, I gotta say, if I'm gonna die of a diabetic coma, I would like for it to be on YouTube. I would like for it to be saved for posterity so my children can watch me slump over in my chair. Anyway, we started kind of dark. I'm sorry. It's the fruit snacks. I blame the fruit snacks. Normally, I detest eating on mic. I think it's unprofessional, and this is coming from a guy who makes jokes about cutting off his own dick on his channel. So, you know, for me, it's a pretty low bar, but I do consider eating to be unprofessional, and yet I consider this medicinal. These are medicinal fruit snacks, you guys, okay? Purely medicinal. Anyway, what's good, everybody? Welcome to the Movie Mass. I am your brother, Jay. The movie monk, the Bishop of Bull Moose. And man, I wanted to go to Bull Moose today. I'll tell you, came this close to making a trip, but I did not go. I'll talk more about that in a second, but just cracked a nice Bissell Brothers. Do you guys have Bissell Brothers where you live? Probably you don't. This is a Maine beer out of Portland, Maine, which is like the hipsteriest hipster spot in all of Maine. And I will say I do love Bissell Brothers. I do treat myself to a Bissell Brothers from time to time. This is The Substance. No relation to the popular film from a few years ago. The Substance as a beer has been around for, I don't know, at least a decade. I think I had my first Substance like 2016, you know, somewhere in that neighborhood. Pardon me as I wash these fruit snacks, my medicinal fruit snacks, down with a little New England hazy IPA, my preferred beer of choice. Not too shabby. If you guys are in Maine or Massachusetts or something, I think you can get Bissell. I think they even might go into New Hampshire a little bit nowadays too, but they're pretty local. If you do find yourself in the area and you do like beer, particularly New England IPA, I have to recommend Bissell. But I came pretty close to going to Bull Moose today, and I did not, unfortunately, make it to Bull Moose. It snowed last night as we were sleeping. I knew it was going to. It wasn't a surprise, but it snowed like, I don't know, 4 or 5 inches. Nothing cataclysmic, especially for Maine. We're prepared for 4 or 5 inches. That's like 2 JCLs, so Jason Cocklengths. So it's not much, and I was able to shovel it very quickly to get out to my car. But my kid's school was like, "Fuck it, we out. We out here. We can't do 4 inches." And I think just enough teachers called out that they finally were like, they were going to delay, you know, school opening today. But, you know, I am a housewife, part-time. I'm a part-time housewife. So when my children are home from school, for whatever reason, sick or otherwise, my wife has a real job. So I become the housewife. I watched the kids. I played with the kids today. We had a lovely time, even though it did not involve going to Bull Moose. We had a lovely time. I've recently got my kids playing Mario Kart, much to my wife's chagrin. So my kids are really enjoying Mario Kart, and Mario Kart is a good game for them at their age. They're 6 and 3. But you guys know, if you've played Mario Kart on the Switch, it sort of has these, you know, it's like bumpers. It's like bowling with bumpers. There's sort of a kid mode, just for funsies, right? You can steer your little guy, and you can push the button to use the power-ups and stuff, and you can smack people with the red shell, which my kids love. They love smacking people with the red and the blue shells. If they can hit somebody, they like watching it in slow motion on the playback and stuff. Because, like, yeah, motherfucker. Like, I've already taught them how to shit talk. And so we had a lovely time doing at the same time, as much as I like them playing video games and enjoying kind of the things that I enjoy, movies, video games, etc., I still try to be a responsible parent and limit screen time. I want my kids to, like, I don't know, read books and go outside sometimes too. It's just part of life and childhood. So they wanted to play Mario Kart, but I was like, hey, let's like play, like actually play. Let's get up and play. And so what we wound up doing is we must have spent 2 hours doing this. We got a bunch of paper, and my kids were drawing like the power-ups, like the coins and the bananas and the mushrooms and the blue shell and the red shell. And they drew these and they cut them out of the paper. And then they went around the house and they put them like in a track, like around the downstairs, like through the kitchen, down the hallway, or through the living room, through the kitchen, and then back. And then I gave them the little steering wheels from the Wii version of Mario Kart. Now I sound old because I got these 15-year-old steering wheels that you used to put the Wiimote in to play the Wii version of Mario Kart. And I was like, here's your steering wheels. And they just went running around. You know, they were just doing laps around the whole downstairs, pretending to drive their carts through the house. And I don't know why I'm sharing that with you. It has to do with physical media, I guess, tangentially. But that's what I did today instead of going to Bull Moose. And it's cute. I don't imagine on my deathbed I will regret not going to Bull Moose for the 4,374th time. I imagine on my deathbed I'll be glad that I instead spent that time making a kind of corny but like sappy memory with my kids. So that's what I did instead of go to Bull Moose today. But I wanted to go to Bull Moose because Bull Moose has a copy of a Blu-ray that 88 Films just released in the U.S. This is one of the rare 88 Films, like Region A releases that I want to pick up. It's a Duel to the Death. So let me know in the chat if you guys have picked up Duel to the Death or if you've seen it before. It's a Hong Kong cinema film, but it's like, you know, Japanese samurai versus Chinese, Chinese martial artists, Chinese kung fu, and it's a film that I first saw on VHS, I don't know, way back in, must have been like 96, 97, back when VHS was still kind of cool before DVD took over. And I just remember being very enamored by the cover. I blind bought that VHS just because it looked badass. And I think I might have seen a trailer for it on another VHS, like The Killer or something. And I was like, I got to check out Duel to the Death. So it's a little nostalgic, but they just released like a new version of the Blu-ray with a slipcover, and you know I got to get that slipcover. So I wanted to go to Bull Moose to pick that out, but instead, what up, Brad? How you doing, buddy? I hope you're having a nice day. I was doing Mr. Mom. I was Mr. Mom today. Every time I'm like, I'll joke with my wife. I'm like, I'm the housewife. She's like, no, you're a house husband. I'm like, nah, it's better if you, it's more insulting if you feminize it. If you're like, it's ma'am. Yeah, it's ma'am. Now, you taking the care of the kids? I'm breastfeeding now. I'm actually lactating, guys. So it's good. My estrogen is very high. I'm a housewife now. She tries to like masculinize it for me. It's kind of cute. Like my wife wants to make sure I still feel like a man, and I'm like, it's okay, honey. It's fine. You know, I'm wearing a princess dress. I'm actually wearing a unicorn horn on my head as we speak, and she's trying to make me feel more manly about the whole arrangement. And I'm like, it's okay. It's all right. Like, I'm confident enough in me that the fact that I look like a total bitch right now is all right with me. I'm okay with that. And if my daughters are happy and not screaming, I'm happy. Even if I'm not going to Bull Moose. I wanted to, but oh man. Anyway, what up, Sydney? Sydney and this bitch? What up, Sydney? How you doing? Even though she talking to Brad, what up? I hope everyone's good. Carrie, what's going on, man? I hope you're doing all right, too. I hope March is treating you well so far. It's, what is it, the 6th? Man, pretty soon here, we're going to be a week into March. That is difficult for me to believe that we are. It's also nice, though, because by about this time of year, I get pretty tired of all the snow. Speaking of getting 4 inches dumped on me last night. I took 4 inches last night, y'all. And I am aware of how that sounds. That's why I said it. But yeah, I get kind of tired of the snow and stuff by this time. You get tired of what happens is it invariably it snows all night. So when you wake up in the morning, there's snow. And of course there's school and work and life. So I have to get my ass up extra early when it snows overnight because I have to go push a snowblower around for an hour before anybody can frickin' leave the compound. So I have to also snowblow out my tenants. I have property, so I have to snowblow not just my own. I got to make sure that they can remove their vehicles as well, and so I'm accountable to other human beings, not just my kids. I got all sort of human beings that I got to take care of. So I got to get up early, and the snow, I put my AirPods in, and I'll just crank it up. I'm just killing my eardrums, but I'll crank it as loud as it can go so I can hear it over the snowblower, and I'll just, I'll listen to my man's Chase or whomever. And I'm tired of snow blowing. I'm tired of like pushing the snow around, throwing my back out like with the shovel and shit. Salt is like $20 for like a giant bag of salt, but it's like you be going to get one of them every other week. So you got like a $40 or $50 a month salt budget, like just for the salt that you put outside your house so no one breaks their neck. And I have to, of course, I'll go salt the tenants because I'm nice. I don't think I'm actually obligated via a lease to like salt their door or anything, but I do it because I'm nice and I don't want anyone slipping on my property. So, I'll go salt everybody's doors, at the property and stuff at the compound. So anyway, I'm ready for March to be, here. Yeah, I don't know where you are in the world, Sydney, but it's 10 o'clock here, and I watched the kids all day. I'm entitled to Abyssal. I'm treating myself to Abyssal Brothers. It is time for a beer. It's the end of the day. I'm treating myself to a little bit of medicinal fruit snacks to keep my blood sugars up while I engage with y'all wonderful people. You people. Oh, thank you, Conan McLeod. Duel to the Death is a badass film, and I must be honest, I haven't seen it since I owned it on VHS back in the day. I mean, I watched it several times when I owned it on VHS. I no longer have that VHS. It went the way of most of my VHS, which is to say it's probably in a landfill somewhere, unfortunately. I did not retain my VHS. DVD and Blu-ray and streaming, and me having boxes of shit in my mom's basement for like 30 years. My mom was finally like, you got to get these last couple boxes of bullshit out of my basement. And I think I think somewhere around 2012 or 2013, those VHS finally got yeeted, and Duel to the Death was probably among them. Although, who knows? Maybe I'll open up a box one day and be surprised. But I haven't seen it. I haven't seen it in a very long time. And while I do recall the film, I mean, I haven't watched it since the VHS era, so that ought to give you an idea of how long it's been. So I'm looking forward to revisiting it. I do think that I wish I'd gotten it today. I would hold it up for you, but I think that the slipcover, if you guys have seen it, the new slipcover that 88 Films, the artwork that they commissioned, I don't really feel like it represents the film very well. I feel like it's particularly the visual style of the film, like the slipcover, I think looks a little bit more like saturated, like the colors really pop a lot more. And I recall that film being a little bit more gray and muted in its color grade, but that could just be like the VHS copy that I watched as well. So I'm looking forward to revisiting it, and maybe I'll STF you about any criticism of the slipcover art until I've properly revisited it. What up? How's it going, my brother? Hopefully you checked out, I did a video on anime, and it was largely inspired by like that little bit of anime conversation that we had during my man John Doe Juggalo's live stream. My man's Jeff, we popped off with like a little bit of an anime conversation, and several people, including yourself in the chat, were, you know, it felt supportive. My video on anime, it fucking, it died. It didn't do very well, even by my standards. That was a broke dick video, unfortunately. That one didn't do so well. But you know what? I'm stubborn and I have more to say about anime, so I'm not going to let the low views dissuade me, because it's not like I'm making any money off of this shit anyway. So, you know, what's the difference going from 0 to 0? I don't give a shit. Yeah, okay. So this is, I hadn't seen this comment yet, but it is actually quite relevant to what I'm saying. I mean, I would take that YouTube money. Why not? I mean, they gave enough to MrBeast. They could peel off a little bit of that. For any of you guys that have kids out there, I would be interested, especially young kids. I mean, if you got 27-year-old children, I'm maybe not as interested in what you have to say, although I'm still interested in what you have to say. Don't take it the wrong way. But people with like younger kids, I don't know, like sub 10 years old, how do you deal with like influencers, social media, YouTube? I mean, I'm not just like, here's the phone, go wild, because I've been on Instagram. It only takes about 5 minutes for that Instagram algorithm to like bend you to like softcore, like I used to masturbate, to way less in the Sears catalog circa 1994 type of Instagram content. I feel like Instagram is the fucking devil. Like, you guys seen that meme of the guy and he's like the friar and he's like praying, and then over to his right is like this chick and she's in lingerie and she's like tempting him, and he's all trying to ignore when he needs to be getting out of that house. Like, he needs to be throwing her out. Don't sit there and pray when her titty's like a foot away. Anyway, I digress. But I feel like Instagram is kind of the devil, and it will, like, I'll look at content with my kids sometimes. Like, I'll show them a reel that's funny or something, and they'll say, oh, I want to see this one. And it's like Huntrix. It's like a live action, like the girls dressed like Rumi and the other girls dressed like Mira. And it's pretty, like, there's nothing really wrong with it. There's nothing, they're not doing anything overly sexual. It's just like, oh, it's pretty normal cosplay, fairly tame as far as cosplay goes. And so I don't have a problem with that, but it's like, you click that, and then they serve you up this other thing where it's like the lady getting dressed up as Elphaba from Wicked, and that's fine too, because she's putting on makeup and face paint, and it's really creative. And then, like, the fourth or fifth one, it's just some girl with her tits out and her ass hanging out. I'm like, how do you, like, I'm looking at Huntrix, like K-pop Demon Hunter cosplay, and girls putting on makeup to look like Elphaba, and like 4 swipes later, they just curve you right into like, oh, you're looking at a girl. Okay, well, how would you like to see one with her top off? And it is wild how they will just, they'll put you right in the HOV lane to like straight to like just girls with titties out. And I don't, like, they call themselves influencers, but all you influence in is a boner. That's it. It's spank material is what it is. You're not influencing shit except for wieners. You're influencing a lot of wieners, but that's it. And I don't know, man. It's not a noble profession anyway. I try to keep my kids away from that stuff. But my question to y'all that I was trying to pose 15 minutes ago was that, you know, like MrBeast. My kids know who MrBeast is now, and it's through no fault of my own. We don't do MrBeast in this household, but it's like he's got candy and shit. So I'll be at the checkout with my kid, and she's like, oh, it's a MrBeast chocolate bar, and somehow that makes it better than, like, I don't know, Hershey's or some other, like, Willy Wonka used to be the man. Like, I wanted a Willy Wonka chocolate bar because there was a movie with the kids and the Oompa Loompas, the orange midgets and shit. And now it's like MrBeast. For some reason, I want this guy's chocolate. But, like, what does MrBeast have to do with chocolate anyway? Besides just licensing his name out to make even more money. It's kind of disgusting. I wish people would stay in their lane a little bit more than MrBeast is with this whole chocolate thing. But it's also like, how do I get my kids to dislike MrBeast as much as I do? I think that's really my question to you guys out there who have young children. How do you get your kids to also dislike MrBeast as much as I dislike MrBeast? Not that I think MrBeast is a bad guy. I don't know. I kind of want to beat him up in front of my kids. I want my kids to see me beat up a couple of influencers. And it's not because I'm a particularly violent person. I mean, I do truly consider myself a Buddhist and a non-violent person, but I do sometimes think you got to lay down the law. And I kind of feel like I need my kids to see me beat up a few influencers just so they know I can do it. Not because I'm violent or I feel any urge to hit someone. I'd probably feel pretty bad after beating up the influencer. I just kind of want to do it just so my kids can be like, oh yeah, okay. Dad whipped that MrBeast dude's ass. So even though the MrBeast dude's got a lot more money and influence and power and whatever, Dad punched him. I don't know. I feel like we need to do that. Cinematic trash. No, I've heard a little bit. I haven't gotten around to watching anything, but I've obviously just participating in Blu-ray forums and Reddit and stuff, the boutique Blu-ray subreddit and stuff. I've read things, but I haven't checked them out. So unfortunately, I can't engage you in that conversation much as I would like to. I unfortunately can't. I can't sink my teeth into that one, but I'm always open for recommendations. You guys know I love a blind buy almost as much as anything else. And so I think I'm always open for people to make a case, tell me why these movies are great, tell me about the violence or the gratuitous nudity, full frontal, tell me about how wild and crazy and insane they are. I'm always down for that. Okay. Yeah, I knew you would agree with me about anime being cinema. But I mean, I'm kind of conflicted on is anime cinema? I mean, I think some of it is. Yeah, but it's sort of like homegrown horrors, the sets that are released by Vinegar Syndrome that contain these ultra cult, sort of regional, ultra micro budget films. Are those cinema, right? I mean, they're not Ben-Hur, they're not Sunset Boulevard. Are they cinema? And so I think, anime probably has its analogies where some anime is Akira. I mean, there's always going to be people who Akira is that's the one people point to. But then you also feel kind of cheesy being like, well, Akira is one of my favorite anime, because that's almost like saying Citizen Kane is my favorite movie. It's I mean, it could be. It's allowed, but it's also it's a great movie, and people agree it's a great movie, and people agree that it's an important and influential film, but I don't feel like that's the one that people say Citizen Kane is my favorite, because it almost feels too textbook for people. It almost feels like it's not really it's not a real answer. Almost, it's like you just got these notes written on your palm, and you're like, oh, Citizen Kane is my favorite movie. So Akira almost feels like that, even though it is one of the films I would point to. It's yeah, anime is, it's definitely cinema. There's probably some other stuff, but there's a lot of anime. I mean, there's a lot of anime does some weird stuff. So when people criticize anime for being kind of strange, odd, cringy in parts, sometimes I'm you got a good point. I've seen a lot of La Blue Girl, and as kind of funny as it is, I can laugh at La Blue Girl for 10 or 15 minutes. It's kind of funny, but did we need 6 half-hour OVA episodes of La Blue Girl? It's we got 300 minutes of tentacle porn. I think people are just jacking off to this at this point. It's not, if it was an SNL sketch and it was 5 or 10 minutes long, I get it. But when it's 300 minutes of La Blue Girl, you just have to wonder, I don't know, how did that get made? Jeff, What up, Jeff? Jeff understands the medicinal use of fruit snacks because Jeff is a man who understands the side effects of insulin use, the complications that often come with using exogenous insulin. And the problem is hypoglycemia. I was going low before this stream. It was about 10 till 10, and I was like, man, I got to run upstairs and get some fruit snacks. And I'm lucky I bought these fruit snacks on the way home today. I'm lucky I got the fruit snacks today. Otherwise, I'd be passed out in this chair right now. You guys would be just looking at my corpse. And that would be maybe moderately more entertaining than this. I don't know. What up? Yeah, I don't know, man. I blame YouTube. I blame YouTube. But also, if YouTube started telling everybody, if YouTube was like, hey, Jason's live, then I wouldn't be able to claim that I'm the best kept secret on YouTube. So, you know, there's something cool about being underground. It's not as cool as selling out. I never blamed bands for selling out. I remember being a teenager and, you know, like being a sellout was like bad back then. I'm like, I'm sorry, these professionals that you like their music and you want them to tour and you want them to continue making music, but you don't want them to make any money doing it. So like they have to keep working at a grocery store. Like what, how much sense does that make? Like, don't you want these people to be compensated for their abilities so that they can keep doing the thing that you like them to do? It's like, I don't know. It's like, rooting for them to fail, but you want them to keep making music. It's like, they're not going to keep making music if nobody buys their music. They kind of need to make some money. And I understand that's not, you know, selling out is like when you start working for the man. It's like when I come on here and start pimping, like I don't do any, obviously I've never, with my old podcast, I had some sponsorships, but it was really rare. And it was only stuff that I actually liked. Like Liquid Death was a sponsor for a while. This is, you know, years before they were doing Super Bowl commercials. They sponsored my humble podcast, Shit Happens When You Party Naked. And I like Liquid Death though. I mean, I've always, this was back when all they had was the still and the sparkling water in the tall boy cans. But I like sparkling water legitimately. It's a good mixer and it's also good by itself. But I liked Liquid Death. I liked the aesthetics. I still have a couple pairs of sweatpants and stuff they sent me. They sent me a onesie for my oldest Evelyn when she was teeny tiny and wore onesies. But I like Liquid Death, so I didn't mind having a sponsor and saying like this is something that I use. I'm not just being paid to say that, like, this is cool. But I haven't, you know, apart from that, I've never like pimped anything, and I'm not sure that I'd really want to, but that's how you're going to know I sold out, is when I come on here. I'm like, A24 is great, guys. Like that's, you're going to know I sold out, and it's going to be a nice fat, like I you know, put a nice chunk down on the mortgage when I come on here and start saying that A24 is the best. Have you guys seen the newest A24 movie? It's great. It's about lesbian bodybuilders or something. I don't know. It's like Thelma and Louise, except for they're bodybuilders. I don't know. I don't know anything about it, but it's a great movie. A24 is the best, guys. Okay. Yeah, but that is too bad. They're just telling you, man. Influence wieners? Yeah, they do influence wieners. I don't know. I think it's still too much to call them influencers. I'm sorry if I'm missing Fun City Editions. I'm not sure what this is in reference to, but yeah, cool. I dig it. I got some Fun City Editions. Did anybody get the Fabulous Stains? And if you did you get the limited edition, the deluxe? Does Fun City even offer the standard at the same time as the limited, or do they wait till the limited sells out? I don't remember, because all I ever buy is limited, so I never even look to see if they have the standard, because it's limited or nothing. I'm not fucking with no standard edition. I don't do it. But if you got the Fabulous Stains out there, I want to know, how's it look? You know, it's their first 4K, right? I want to know what it looks like, how it looks, and then B, is the deluxe edition, did that one influence your wiener more than the Instagram models? I'll call them models. I think that's complimentary. It's nice to call them Instagram models, even though, again, I think they're really, it's just, you know, I wouldn't be doing anything different if I had tits. Let me tell you something, guys. If I didn't have a hairy chest, if I had an attractive chest and I was a lady, I'd be doing the same exact shit. You don't think I'd be on OnlyFans right now instead of here? I'd be sitting on a plunger handle right now for about 5 people. I'd be making $37 a month. I don't give a shit. That is what I would be doing. I got a beard, so instead I had to develop a sense of humor and try to make people laugh because nobody, I'm taking off my top. You're going to see my hairy chest and nobody's going to click that. That's not a thumbnail. Anyway. Yeah, calm down, Jeff. Calm down, Jeff. I can't take my top off on YouTube anyway. I heard YouTube doesn't like it if you show your nips, even as a dude. Like, you can't show your nipples. So, I mean, not that it's a physical media channel, guys. I'm not really going to ever have the occasion to do that, but I don't know. I kind of feel like if I was doing a vlog post at a beach or something, like you might see my nipple if I was at the beach. I don't see how YouTube could police that, but I heard they don't like that, so. Yeah. Yeah, I think I was 16 to 17 was probably where I started getting away from the movies and especially the gaming at that point because I was, 16, 17, I'm driving. I'm thinking girls, like I'm thinking I want to go on dates, I want to touch boobies, you know what I'm saying? So I was still, don't get me wrong, like I would go out and I'd work, I'd come home after work, I would definitely like plop down on the couch, like warm up, whatever, and put in a movie. I watched The Killer or whatever. I'd fire up the N64 because that's how long ago we're talking. I remember coming home from my first job. I was a busboy. Oh, my God. I used to come home smelling like a ball sack. But I would pop in. Star Fox 64 had just come out. Have y'all played Star Fox 64? That game is the shit, man. I need to dust off my I don't have a TV to plug it into, but if I had a TV to plug it into, I would dust off my N64 tomorrow, and I'd show my kids an actual game. We've been playing a lot of Mario Kart, but I'd start working them over in N64. The problem is they can't handle getting beat up. They can't handle it when I beat them in a game and then I gloat. I get in their face. I'm like, you're 3 years old. You thought you had a chance in Mario Kart? Go sit down. They can't handle that, so I don't. Yeah, Watership Down. That's animation, and that's in the Criterion collection. That is one of the, I don't know, like 10 films, animated films that the Criterion collection has released. I was looking into that when I was doing research for the K-pop Demon Hunters video that I did like a week ago or whatever. I was looking into like, well, how much animated shit has Criterion really released? I didn't feel like they had very much animation, especially when you compare it to something like Shout, because I think Shout has that whole G Kids line where and it's called G Kids. You expect it to be like Looney Tunes shit, but they got like Evangelion in there and stuff. I'm like, dude, that kid jacks off on Asuka when he sees her titty in the hospital and he jacks off on her. I'm like, that ain't no kid shit, dude. I think they even have there's like the image of his hand like afterward, like he ain't even wiped up yet. I'm like, dog, that ain't, what are you putting that on your G Kids line for? Because he got like, they show his hand before he even cleans up, just so you know what he did. Like you didn't need to, like you couldn't fill in the gaps. Anyway, not that G Kids is necessarily a entirely kids focused line. It also contains the Miyazaki films, but I was surprised to see that, Watership Down is a Criterion. They've released it on Blu-ray, I believe, and so that's all good. Belladonna of Sadness was recently released on 4K. I shouldn't say recently. It's probably a year and a half ago now, but a rare anime 4K. I feel like anime is still one of those niches within cinema that just hasn't gotten a lot of 4K love yet, especially some of the older ones. Perfect Blue just got a 4K real recently, but there's not a ton of 4K anime out there. So, maybe like this year, next year, maybe that'll be the year for bringing some anime back and, at least some of the bigger ones putting them out. Akira obviously has the 4K. I was very impressed. And honestly, if I'm being honest, I hadn't seen Akira since VHS days. And so it impressed me when I finally popped in the 4K and watched it for the first time in literal decades. Or might have been early 2000s. I don't know. It might have been on TV. At any rate, the last time I saw it, it was very poor quality. It was either on VHS in the 90s or it was in the early 2000s and it was on Toonami or some shit. But either way, we're talking about like very low resolution, very poor quality. So watching the 4K was great. I'd love to see more 4K anime. Belladonna of Sadness. That's one that I'd like to see. 3 O'Clock High needs a 4K. Thank you. Thank you. I recently got that Blu-ray when Shout was closing down their website before moving over to Groove, and they had everything on like fire sale. I want to say I paid like $7 for a brand new Blu-ray of 3 O'Clock High, which I believe, I researched it, I believe it never came with a slipcover. It's one of those instances, like Scream Factory, Shout Factory, they do this just to fuck with us. Like, I don't know, it's like every 9th movie, they like throw darts at a dartboard, and like every one that just kind of misses the dartboard, they're like, no slipcover for that one. So it's like every 12th movie or every like 18th movie, 17th movie, it's like, we're just not going to do a slipcover for the 4K of Dragon, the Bruce Lee story. Even though like it's Dragon, the Bruce Lee story. Like, I was 12 when it came out or something. Like, I was so hyped for that movie. I was so hyped. And when my parents took me to go see that shit in the theater, I was like, yeah, fuck yeah. Dude, I was all about it. And unfortunately, it didn't come with a slipcover. And 3 O'Clock High, I believe, was one of those releases as well. So yeah, I would very much like a 4K of 3 O'Clock High, and it better come with a damn slipcover or a chunky box. Damn it. I want a 4K of that one too. You speak in my language with the neo-noir here. Night in the City is one that I have not seen, but you start using words, you start using language like neo-noir, you starting to sweet talk me. You starting to get me into it. I'm starting to slip into something more comfortable. You know what I'm saying? You want to come up for a drink? You want to come on up to my apartment for a drink? Let's go upstairs for a drink. Okay, I don't want this night to be over yet. You start talking to me. You start whispering those sweet nothings like neo-noir into my ears, because I do like the sounds of that. If it's got a 4K, holla. I'm gonna Google that after this anyway, though. I'm gonna find out. I'll get a tattoo of the company that sponsors your new channel. Does it have to be a new channel, or should it be, can it be this channel? Because, but where will you get the tattoo? Not on your hands, neck, face, or penis, right? Because that's what you told me earlier, bro. I'm also glad you're here. That gentleman, Cameron, that's my younger brother. I love you, bro. Cameron, when you were here, did you have a Bissell? Did any of the times that you came to visit, it doesn't have to be the most recent time, but any of the times that you came to visit, did you have a Bissell? Because if not, I'm very sorry. I'd like to apologize. But then next time you come up, let's get some Bissell, okay? We should even go to Portland and like check out the brewery. Have like a little flight. We can make a day of it. Anyway, that's my brother, everybody. One of my two brothers. I got two brothers. Love those fuckers. Naruto was your gateway to anime. I like how that we can make that rhyme. Anime gateway to anime. I never watched Naruto. I know nothing about Naruto, and that was like kind of almost after my time. I know it got huge over here in the States, but that was at the point in time where I was like, okay, they're not doing the rest. Viz wasn't doing Fist of the North Star anymore. They weren't doing Urusei Yatsura anymore. They had finished Maison Koku, and I was like, what is there to read? Tokyo Pop was putting out a bunch of stuff about like dudes who were in love, and I'm fine with that being like existing, and I'm cool with people enjoying manga about two dudes that are boyfriend and boyfriend and have sex and live together and kiss and stuff. That doesn't bother me at all. It's not something that I bat an eyelash at. At the same time, I'm not the demographic. I'm not really, it's not doing anything for me. It doesn't move the needle. And the needle is actually the nickname for my penis. So I just, that was the point where, like, at the point in time that Naruto was coming out, I was like, man, anime lost me, manga lost me a little bit for several years there. And even now, when I talk about it, I'm talking Fist of the North Star, Kimagure Orange Road, and just like older stuff. Like, I'm talking about stuff from the 90s and from the 80s and stuff like that. It's a pretty rare thing that current anime or manga get me. But Dandadan is one that got me because it has that same kind of like bonkers, like off the wall kind of energy that I love about Urusei Yatsura. Even though it's a it's a different genre, it's a different thing. But Dandadan, I found to be just like bonkers and off the wall, and just has all of that just madcap energy. So I did like that one. Like, it's just so stupid, and it owns how stupid it is. And I dug that one. So the Dandadan is one that I still read. Eli, man, what's up? How you doing, Eli? What up, pimp? Everybody says that about Evangelion, and I'm not here to attack Evangelion. Like, when I clicked the go live button tonight, I didn't anticipate tonight's the night that tonight's the night I get in some shit. I'm gonna talk some shit about Evangelion, but I'm here to say I find it to be a little bit overrated. Now, I'm only familiar with the original television series and the movies that they made like right after. You know, the End and Death or whatever, End and Rebirth, whatever it is. The two movies that they made like right after. That's like hard to even tell them apart. That feel like part recap of the TV show and part like fever dream of somebody who watched the TV show back in the 60s when they were tripping on acid. So but at the same time, as I say that I find Evangelion overrated, I will also say that I haven't watched any of the rebuild films, the more recent rebuild films, which aren't even really that recent anymore, but the more recent rebuild films of like the 20-teens, I have not watched those yet. I'm open to watching them. I'm open to liking them. And I'll also say that it's possible that I feel like Evangelion is overrated because of a defect in me. Like, that might be something wrong with me versus Evangelion. It might just be that I don't get it. I don't understand it. An obtuse gaijin who I just don't get it. But I'm like, dude, too much whining and crying in Evangelion, too much like jacking off on the girl in the hospital instead of like actually talking to her and trying to like go on a date and then have some legitimate sex. I don't know. I'm just, and then everything's in Shinji's head at the end. And I don't know, man. I don't get it, but I also feel like they tried too hard to make the shit convoluted. They're like, if we make this shit just so convoluted that nobody understands it, then they'll blame themselves for not getting it, and they won't realize that we didn't have a decent ending at all. We had no idea where we were going with this story to begin with. And I feel like it's just the ultimate gaslighting. And I'm sorry to say it because I know there's Evangelion stans out there that are going to shank me next time I'm in prison for saying this. Like, I'm legitimately going to have to look over my shoulder when I leave the house tomorrow because the Evangelion stans are going to be after me now that I said that. But I have to say, I feel that way, and I have no filter, and I'm live right now, so I have to say it. I can't edit this out. Maybe I would later, but I can't, so I said it. I'm glad you like it, though. I want you to like it, so, yes, Criterion did release Fantastic Planet. That is, again, one of the, 10 animated features that they've got, and I don't own that one yet. I've been meaning to pick that up. I mean, every time they do a sale, I'm like, this is the year. I'm walking to that Barnes & Noble. I'm getting Fantastic Planet. I'm going to come home, and I'm going to eat some edibles, and I'm going to drink 2 Bissell Brothers, and I'm going to watch that shit. And then it's like Criterion will release 8 other things. I'm like, well, I gotta get Seven Samurai on 4K, and I gotta get Paper Moon, and I gotta get this other Hong Kong thing, the Blade that they put out. And I got to get that Bob Hoskins thing that they brought back, the Long Good Friday. So, stuff just winds up jumping in front of Forbidden Planet in line. Or Fantastic Planet, sorry. Forbidden Planet's a different one. Anyway. Bird Boy is another good one. I will take your word for it, even though you're an Evangelion fan. I will take your word for it, and I'll check out Bird Boy. I haven't seen it, so... is it an anime? You call it a cartoon. Are we in agreement that anime is just cartoons that happen to be produced in Japan? Like, it's different, but it's not like fundamentally different than like the shit we call cartoons. Like, Bugs Bunny's not in it, but I do remember the anime Starblazers. Yes, I do. I don't feel like it got as much airplay on television in the United States. I mean, at least once I was old enough to kind of pay attention. I do remember Robotech being syndicated and coming on, I don't know, TBS or something. Sometimes weird times of day, like 7:30 in the morning on a weekday. But I don't really remember Starblazers, like once anime started popping off in the 90s and they started doing like Toonami and shit like that. And Adult Swim was popping off, and it was well before like they started doing their own shit with like Aqua Teen and then Rick and Morty type of stuff, or Super Jail. But Starblazers, I do remember. I do remember seeing like Starblazers comic books, I think like American adaptations of Starblazers at the comic book shop and shit when I was a kid. But yeah, I mean, you, Carrie, I do remember you saying you lived all over the place. You slang dick all over the globe. You truly a global dick slanger. So, I mean, maybe not so much in your elementary school years, as you mentioned here, but certainly you would have been exposed to it maybe more than I, having grown up in the great state of Georgia. So, but I do recall Starblazers. I think if they did like a, and they may have, but if there's like a nice Starblazers Blu-ray out there, did I just say that right? Starblazers Blu-ray. Yeah, okay. It just sounded like I totally slurred that. I was like, did I just embarrass myself? If there's a nice like Blu-ray set of Starblazers, I would most certainly check that out. Just to catch up on it, because I feel like that's another one. That's like saying I'm like a film buff. I really like movies. I'm a cinephile. I've got a movie related YouTube channel, but I haven't seen Citizen Kane. Like, I think if all of those things are true, there's like some massive dissonance. So I think also it's like Starblazers. Yeah, that's something that I should see. That's something that I should be able to say that I've seen, that I have consumed. I've laid eyes upon it, and yet I have not. So I should add that to my to-do list. I should add that to my giant list. The only list that I've got that's bigger than the stack of movies that I have not watched yet, that I have bought but haven't watched, is the giant list of movies that I need to buy. Because that one's always growing, right? Like that Amazon cart, it doesn't cost any money to make that Amazon cart bigger. Wicked City is a crazy anime. Eli, okay, we're realigning. You're realigning with the Deacon of Discotheque over here, the brother Bullnoose. Now we're back in communion, as they say. We have restored our communion of faith. Wicked City is sick. Wicked City also has a manga. This is something that I believe I learned relatively recently. The Wicked City anime is, of course, based on a manga, and I need that in English. I do beseech someone out there, if we can get Stop Shibari-kun in English, God knows we can get Wicked City in English, right? Like, if we are ready, if my body is ready for a legit U.S. domestic release of Stop Shibari-kun manga, then my body is beyond ready for Wicked City, and I would buy that manga. I am guilty of buying manga, you guys. I don't mind admitting it. I'm about no shame in my game. This is nothing I'm ashamed to admit. But I do stick to, like, the older stuff. So when they put out, like, the Lone Wolf and Cub hardback, like that giant hardback Lone Wolf and Cub, I'm like, you know, because that's old stuff. It also has a connection to, boutique Blu-ray with the Criterion Collection films in that series that were based on that manga. And so, there is a strong, I think, connection there. And Wicked City, I would cop that. You know what? I sort of accept that excuse. At the same time, I've got DVDs from 2006 that got slipcovers. I have a DVD copy of Waiting, the movie with Justin Long and David Koechner and Ryan Reynolds and Anna Faris. That is kind of criminally underrated. It's actually a pretty good movie. I I think the only reason that nobody watches Waiting or talks about Waiting anymore is because Ryan Reynolds has paid everybody in the world except me to not talk about Waiting because he says the FAG word in that movie in kind of a joking way, but at the same time, back then he was Ryan Reynolds. Now he's like, you know, Deadpool, Ryan Reynolds, multi-billion-dollar movies. And, you know, I think back in 2005 or whenever he made that movie, you know, people weren't thinking about it then. And now he's thinking about, oh my God, you know, like I'm in this movie from 20 years ago where I said the FAG word, and that's really not cool. So I think he's sort of paid most everybody, but I never got my check. So I'm going to talk about Waiting. And I've got a copy of Waiting with a slipcover on it. And I bought that DVD copy of Waiting in 2000 and, you know, must have been 05, 06. It was somewhere around there. I got it used at an old like video rental place. You know, they used to like, God, there was video rentals. I miss them so much, not just because I could rent movies, but you could buy them cheap too, because they would buy like 30 copies when they were brand new because they were really popular and everybody wanted to rent them. But then like 6 weeks later, something else is out that's really popular, and they would take 25 of those 30 copies and sell them for like $10. And circa like 05, 06, I lived near a video store that did that. And man, I got a lot of DVDs back in the day that were very gently used, slip covers and everything. And I must have paid $10 or so for them. And I miss that. I miss being able to go buy some, you know, cheap ass, previously owned DVD of a movie. But, you know, I guess it is what it is. So I think they should have known. I think they should have known. If I can get Waiting with a slipcover in 2006, then when that Blu-ray came out in 2013 or whatever year that was, Shout Factory should have known how insane I am. Devil's Advocate. I have not gotten that one yet. And I feel bad because, you know, that came out and I was like, I gotta grab that one, you know. What does did Charlize Theron do the glass to the throat in that movie? It's been a while since I've seen that one. That might have been another one that I saw on DVD way back in the day, but I have not gotten that one. I'm glad to hear that you got the slipcover. Because if you don't get the slipcover, send it back. What are you doing? Just send it back. I don't want this. If it doesn't have a piece of cardboard around it, if it doesn't have a flimsy piece of cardboard around it, I don't want it. Send it back. I'm glad it did. Leaving Las Vegas is another one that I don't believe came with a slipcover at all, because I was very excited about the Leaving Las Vegas 4K, and then it doesn't come with a slipcover. And guess who hasn't bought the Leaving Las Vegas 4K yet? Me. Because if it doesn't come with a slipcover at all, like ever, at any point, what is the incentive for me to not wait to buy this thing at absolute bargain basement prices at Bull Moose the day they're closing or something? Like, it just makes no sense to me. The slipcover, and I appreciate the fact that it exists for a limited time to get people to buy the movie at full retail, because otherwise cheap assholes like me will just wait a year or 2 years, and what'll happen in that time is either you'll find a used copy for a very reasonable price, you'll buy a used copy on Facebook for a very reasonable price, or you'll find a sale. There'll be a sale on Groove or something, the 3 for $33 or something like that, and you'll get a copy of it super cheap. The whole point of a slipcover, saying the first printing has a slipcover or whatever, is to get people to buy the thing immediately before it receives any kind of substantive discount. So I don't know what they were thinking, especially with Leaving Las Vegas, because that's an Academy Award winning one. I mean, it's a Nicolas Cage before he was totally batshit crazy. When Nicolas Cage, like when Leaving Las Vegas came out, Nicolas Cage he'd done, the vampire one, the Kiss of the Vampire or whatever, the one, he'd done some crazy shit. But he was still like, you talked about him at Academy Awards. You talked about his roles and stuff. He wasn't like direct to DVD guy churning out like 5 movies a year because he got behind on his taxes or something like that. So I was surprised that that one did not come with a slipcover. I was a little disappointed too. Oh, everybody, don't hold your breath anymore. We were at the edge of our seats, but yes, good. I'm glad that you have enjoyed Abyssal. I'd like to think that when you were here and we went to the beer store that had like all the craft beer, that I would have recommended Bissell as being a brewery that you really should try. It's very good in my opinion. I've had a lot of their different craft brews over the years, and I've never been disappointed. I mean, some have been better than others for sure, but they've never let me down. I've never thrown any of it away. Okay, tell me a little bit more about Testament. Your name here. I would like to know a little bit more about Testament, because I know that I was not impressed with their cover art. Like I'm using that term super loosely because it's like the text and then it's a rectangular box that has a gradient in it. And having never seen the film, I can't possibly look at that and say that's what it means. It's significant to the themes or the visual motifs or styles of the film. All I can say as someone who's never seen the film before is like, why is that the cover? And I mean, as somebody who's like, I have a digital media degree. One of my 2 degrees from University of Georgia is a digital media degree. As a guy who could do Photoshop, it's like, I'm looking at that thinking like, I'm sorry, like, was this 5 minutes of effort for somebody, including clicking export and waiting for it to export? Like, it doesn't make any sense to me, the artwork, but I would love to be sold on that movie overall. Although I will say that if it's a depressing movie, it's going to be I'm going to be a harder sell. I'm a tougher sell on depressing shit in general. Never been a big fan. I know people who like sad music. My wife, and she's kind of getting our kids into this a little bit too, is like a little bit like sappier music. She listens to mellower music. It's not total, I don't know. It's hard to say, but it's like more mellow music, like, you know, the person broke up with me and I wish you didn't leave and stuff like that. I'm like, I don't know. I mean, maybe they're the target demo. They're all women. So maybe they're the target demo for that. And I'm as a male, maybe I'm not. I'm open to that, but I don't like depressing shit. I don't like depressing music. And by and large, I don't really like depressing films. Encino Man on 4K. Bro, now you're starting to cook. I could use some Encino Man on 4K. Did you guys hear that was getting a sequel? Did you guys hear about the sequel to Encino Man? I heard it was getting a sequel, and I don't know if that was just bullshit and someone was just talking, because you can say anything on the internet. Almost anything on the internet. I can think of a few things that you can't say on the internet. Otherwise, the CIA will disappear you. Like your car will malfunction and you'll run off the road and your car will somehow accelerate into a tree. So barring those things that the CIA will disappear you for, probably shouldn't even be saying that on a live stream, right? Now I'm going to disappear tomorrow. Anyway, I feel like you could say anything on the internet. You can make claims that, like, George Lucas is buying back Star Wars and he's going to direct episode 10 and it was all a dream. Luke is going to wake up and he's going to be 35 again and it was all a dream. I don't know. I could say that on the internet and people might believe me if they're gullible. So maybe I'm gullible, but I heard that there was going to be an Encino Man sequel. And if there is, and they pick up with like the Brendan Fraser character, he has to be like a PhD. He has to be teaching some kind of like neuroscience or some kind of like extremely advanced chemical engineering at MIT. Because that's the whole, you know, like he can't be like digging holes in dirt. You know, he can't be living in an actual cave somewhere. He can't even be like a spelunker with like a spelunking YouTube channel because it's not funny enough. But because he is a caveman, if you pick up and he's super, like he's got all of William Shakespeare memorized, like he's translating Beowulf from like the old English and half Norse to like he has to be doing something like that. Chemistry and all that stuff anyway. So much stuff that we need on Blu-ray, right? So much stuff. I will take an Encino Man 4K. I will do that. Final analysis with Richard Gere. Okay. Oh, no kidding. You bought some physical media. I sometimes talk shit about you not owning a Blu-ray player. Because it sort of let the wind out of my sails. I'm like, I can't even buy you a movie for Christmas anymore. Because, like, what are you going to do? Like, set a drink on it? Like, you can't play a movie that I bought for you for Christmas. So I had to take it back. I sent it back to Amazon. But I am glad to hear that you bought a physical media only album. I'm maybe even more glad to hear that whoever put that album out, they got the right idea. Put that shit out on physical media only. Or maybe it just hasn't. Is it like a really old one that, like, for some reason wasn't ever popular enough? I have a CD player now that mostly works. I still have to test it a little bit more. I'm not sure it works, but and I have a ton of CDs. I have all my old CDs, and I got Cameron. I got most of your old CDs too. So you have to come back up again though if you want them, because you have to separate yours from mine. They all got like shuffled together. So I got your CDs, bro. Yeah, I'm anything that reminds you of me, I appreciate it. So Heaven's Prisoners. Are you guys making this up now? You just making movies up. I think you just making them up. Your name here, you just like putting 3 words together and you're like, oh, this is a movie with Orson Welles and Kim Basinger and Olivia Munn. And they're in this movie together. And it's just, I feel like you're making things up now, but I like neo-noir. I don't even like, it doesn't even have to be decent. It can be bad. That's a genre that I like, so I'm here for it. Night in the Life of Jimmy Reardon. Tell me a little bit more about that one. I'd be happy to hear about that one a little bit as a guy who doesn't know. Oh, I'm a little disappointed you don't want to fight me about Evangelion, but it's okay. I love you. I wouldn't want to fight with you over Evangelion. You're too good of a guy. And I don't even hate Evangelion. It's not a hateful thing. Again, I wouldn't consider myself a very good Buddhist if I held hate inside me for things or people, anything. I try not to say, even when my daughters say, oh, I hate that, I'm like, come on. Like, I don't want you to spend a lot of time in your life, don't devote a lot of your energy to that emotion, because I don't think it does you any good. I mean, it just, even if you strongly dislike something, it's like, I don't know, like, the way you think, I think is very connected to the language that you use, and I think sometimes it's easy to use language like, oh, I hate this or I hate that, very, like, flippantly without putting much thought into it, but at the same time, it's like, you can get into this sort of, like, quasi-spiritual rut because you've put yourself into this train of thought many times, or, like, sort of allowed that. It's almost like this strange erosion that creates the Grand Canyon over millions of years, but, like, in your brain. And so you sort of, like, get stuck on this track. And, yeah, so I don't even hate Evangelion because, again, it didn't upset me. I just had the funny thought, like, when I finally watched and I had even been warned. I mean, I watched Evangelion at a time when, like, it was Evangelion. Like, I think I wound up watching it on Netflix. Like, I had seen maybe the first half of the TV series way back in the VHS era in the 90s, and I didn't keep up with it. But then once they put it on Netflix many years ago, I was finally like, oh, okay, it's time for me to, let's watch Evangelion all the way through this time. And so I started it over again. And I remember having kind of been warned, like, the last episode is definitely, it's out there. It's, you're going to get to the end and you're going to say what the F happened, and you're either going to dig it or you're not. And unfortunately, I fell into the camp of people who are like, I don't know. I mean, there's a reason the conventional ending is conventional. There's a reason why it gets used most of the time. And you know, some form of resolution on some level is good for the audience, because then it's like, why did I watch 26 episodes of this, or whatever, 28, whatever Evangelion is? It's in the 20s. I mean, at least it's not like Sopranos had a very, hey, 4K, tent revival. Brad, you still in here? Sopranos, I watched a whole YouTube video on the Sopranos ending the other day, you know, for the 800th time since 2007 or whenever that aired. But yeah, that I would say Evangelion kind of went for it in a way that Sopranos also did. Like, Sopranos was very like formalistic with the film language, like the setup, like the cadence of the editing. So they definitely had like a very sort of like formalized montage to sort of direct you as the viewer. But then, you know, also doing like continuity editing with the eyeline matching and stuff like that. So that you're like sort of following Tony's paranoia with the cuttings. They really achieved sort of Tony's mental state through Gandolfini's acting, but then also the editing that sort of creates these the sightline matching and the cadence and rhythm of the editing and stuff. But they sort of put a lot into the thought of that thing just to sort of make everything go black. And yeah, I sort of get there's a message there too that they were building to at least all of that last season. But it is kind of wild that I don't think he had that. I don't think David Chase had that ending planned from like the first or second season. I think that's something that he kind of planned there when it was finally the last season. But maybe something like that is true for Evangelion. It's just kind of like, how do we end this thing? Okay, so one of his surviving co-pilots is in the hospital. He's going to accidentally see her titty because she's in a coma, and for some reason her titty's going to flop out while she's in a coma. He's going to jerk off, and then he's going to have this weird hallucination in his brain. Everyone's going to die, and then he's going to... I'm sorry, Evangelion is 30 years old, guys. I apologize, but I just feel like they just like, let's go hard convoluted. We're not going to explain anything. We're going to throw some wild shit on the screen, and then maybe it was all in his head. Yes, I will definitely be getting that one. That one is top of the list the next time it's available in a sale. What is it, coming out in May? So it'll be available in the next sale. The next Barnes & Noble sale. Body Heat is going to be the very first Criterion that goes down my pants. And it's going to be good. I'm going to enjoy that. I'm going to agree. I think there are starving people in Indonesia, and I think it's not going to help them, but I'm going to enjoy it if you would just, you know, hit the buttons, man. Let's do it. Hit those buttons. Like this shit, you know. It doesn't do anything for me materially, obviously. We've established that YouTube doesn't pay me, but it definitely helps, like with the sleeping at night and just, you know, like maybe not feeling fiscally superior to the Instagram models who influence wieners on the Instagrams with their provocative reels, but it does make me feel morally superior. Like, I may not be richer, but I'm still better. God likes me better because I don't make money by showing off my butt crack cleavage on the internet. But God knows if I could, I would. So I don't think I get any credit from the Lord for that. War of the Roses. Okay. Hoffa is another one. Now, this is interesting because War of the Roses I haven't seen in God knows how long. I won't comment on that, but I wouldn't mind watching that one again. I suppose Criterion would be as good a place as any for War of the Roses, or I could see Kino. Honestly, Kino does anything. Like, Kino's me when I was 22. Like, honestly, Kino will take anything home. Like, it is no standard Saturday for Kino. They're wild and free, and they're going to do anything. They'll do War of the Roses. Hoffa is one that I remember when it came out. I think that was, what, the 90s? Directed by Danny DeVito, right? Not only is he in the movie, but he actually directs it. This is weird. It's strange because people know Danny DeVito as, like, he's the funny guy from It's Always Sunny. He's, like, wild. He drops the Magnum condom for his Magnum dong. Like, he says shit like that. Like, he tries to marry a hooker, and the only thing that keeps him from marrying a hooker is that she overdoses and dies in his apartment. And that's Danny DeVito to like a lot of people nowadays. But like Danny DeVito, like directed a movie starring Jack Nicholson and cast himself in it too. Hoffa, yeah. I remember when that came out. It must have been, somebody tell me what year Hoffa was, but I don't know. I want to say it was mid-ish 90s, somewhere in there. And I'm 14 or so when this thing comes out, and I remember seeing trailers for it. I remember thinking, like, that's probably going to be a well-received film. But I also remember, like, I don't even know who the hell Hoffa is. Who the shit is Hoffa? I don't know who that motherfucker is. So I remember, like, not being super, I was like, whatever. Like, maybe I'll catch it if it's on USA. One afternoon, I'm super duper bored. But, or like if my, like, government teacher when I'm in 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th grade makes me write a report on it, but I'm not watching that shit. But I do remember finally catching it, I don't know, the aughts maybe, the 2000s, maybe 2010-ish. I finally caught Hoffa, and I just remember thinking, like, that wasn't that great. Like, they didn't, I don't think that was quite as good as maybe they wanted it to be, like, in terms of just being like a legendary, like, this is going to be like Irishman, which covers a lot of the same territory with like Jimmy Hoffa and his life and his death. And I just think, yeah, okay, Irishman, maybe a little bit more like Martin Scorsese, but I just remember thinking, like, yeah, okay, like, maybe that's how it went down. But I remember just thinking, like, wow, that was that, huh? That was it. I need to check this one out as well. Conan McLeod. I need to check that one out. I agree, Robotech is awesome. I'm biased because I grew up at a time that Robotech was on television. And I was a kid, and I saw it when I was, I don't know, 10-ish, and I just remember thinking, like, shit, Robotech is cool, man. I mean, Minmay was kind of a bitch, but whatever. You need that kind of tension in a dramatic work to keep people coming back. But it was definitely like, come on, man. Like, you're not going I understand, like, Minmay, she's it's sort of like who you going to choose. Like, you could get with, I don't know, who's a pop star that's popular right now? Like Sabrina Carpenter. She's a pop star that may be roughly analogous in terms of her renown and what she does for a living, and the fact that she has a certain, like, pop star sex appeal. And yeah, I get, like, Lisa Hayes / Misa Hayase in the Japanese Macross version. It's, I mean, she may be a little bit more, like, down to earth, but I've always been, like, I don't know. You want to put up with, yeah, Minmay's hot, and yeah, she's rich, but, like, do you really want to put up with that diva behavior at the end of the day? Hot will only get you so far. It's not like sex lasts that long, at least if you're me. So, I think you want to be first and foremost with somebody that you can, like, you can vibe with, that you connect with, that you have shared interests and stuff like that. So I think Rick Hunter, at the end of the day, made the right choice. And I know there's 2 other seasons of Robotech, but hey, I always go to Macross because that was the strongest one. And I think most people probably agree with that. Eli, I got to admit, I haven't seen any Inuyasha. I haven't even really read very much Inuyasha, although I have, I think, the first 6 or 7 of the Viz Big manga, because every time I go into a Bull Moose, I also look at their manga. And if they have one used, it's usually like $7 for, the Viz Big, the ones that are like, it's the premium paper, it's a larger format. And for $7, you can't really beat that. So I've caught a few at Bull Mooses from time to time over the years, and I've collected them. And I like Takahashi's work. I've obviously already mentioned Mizunakoku. I've got the Mermaids saga. I've been reading Mizunakoku and Mermaid Saga since the 90s. I got those when Viz put them out in, like, the big floppy comic book format. at the direct market only, like in comic book stores. But I've mentioned Urusei Yatsura, and I'm actually rereading Urusei Yatsura right now. I've got about half of those, the omnibus that were recently re-released by Viz. I've got about half of those, and I'm like reading through those now. And Inuyasha, I've got to get around to Inuyasha because I really do like Takahashi's stuff. I've liked a lot of her manga with Maison Ikkoku especially, but a lot of her stuff is just really, really great. But some of her larger series like Ranma, I've never read any Ranma. I've seen a little bit of it, but Inuyasha is another blind spot for me with a creator that I love, which is it's weird to say. Ninja Scroll is great, and I've got the Berserk anime steelbook that came out like, I don't know, 2 years ago or whatever. I did manage to get my hands on that steelbook for a pretty damn good price from old Crunchyroll there, and I have not watched Berserk yet. I must sheepishly admit that I've never done it. Conspiracy thriller, huh? You might have me there. You might have me there. Whoops. Whoops. That's what I tell my wife when I make my O face. I'm like, oops, sorry. Am I a fan of The Critical Drinker? I'm familiar with The Critical Drinker. I've seen a lot of his videos on YouTube. Obviously, I get recommended, YouTube serves you up things in your feed, not just based on what you're subscribed to, but based on your viewing patterns. So I actually wind up watching a lot of stuff that I'm not subscribed to just because I just, I like random stuff. So yeah, I've seen a lot of his, he tends to like focus on and review things that aren't really, like I'm just not super familiar with. Like he talks a lot of like Star Trek. He talks a lot of like Game of Thrones and related, and the new like prequel series that they're doing to Game of Thrones. So I think a lot of the subject matter that he touches on, the films he touches, like a lot of like very modern stuff, like very cutting edge. And I have Netflix, and that's pretty much it. My wife has Amazon Prime, so we only have Amazon Prime because we like fast shipping. So it's like we watch a little bit of Amazon Prime, we watch a little bit of Netflix. Honestly, I wind up watching a lot of films, and I find that I watch a lot of like older stuff. Like the stuff that I talk about, it's like even if I haven't seen it before, I'm watching something older, So he talks about a lot of like new stuff because that's where his audience is, because he talks a lot about like culture war stuff too, like the current state of media. So I don't dislike the guy. I think maybe he's frauding a little bit because he always seems very sober in his videos, and I'm like, I don't know. Are you really drinking? Because I think I'm like pulling that reverse intervention that Bob Odenkirk does on David Cross in in Mr. Show with Bob and Dave. I'm like, how long have you been not drinking? Because I'm starting to think he's frauding on that drinking. But Waiting is underrated. Thank you very much. Waiting is an underrated film. I think people, when you think back to that era, the mid-aughts of comedy, I think it was kind of a turning point. I think the aughts in general were kind of a turning point from, 90s comedy. In mid-90s, you had a little bit more of a low-budget grunge style where some of these guys like Adam Sandler and David Spade and Chris Farley were making movies, and they were pretty new to the game. In 1995, when Happy Gilmore's coming out and Tommy Boy's coming out, it's like these were like relatively kind of cutting edge, like new names to comedy. It's kind of funny to talk about, everybody knows who Adam Sandler is. Like my kids, they don't know that they know who Adam Sandler is, but they've seen Hotel Transylvania. So it's like at the point nowadays, like at this point, everybody has consumed some degree of Adam Sandler stuff. But like, the mid 90s, it was like Billy Madison, Happy Gilmore, and a few others. that kind of comedy was still sort of like, this is the new kind of grungy, this is like this is what the kids are watching. This isn't your old 80s comedy. And I think that kind of gave way as the 90s went on. You got stuff like American Pie, sort of hearkening back to older stuff like, the more sexualized Revenge of the Nerds and stuff like that, Porky's and stuff like that, where it's, more teenage sex oriented. There's some nudity, there's some titillation and stuff like that. And then, getting through the aughts, they carry some of that like gross out. I think the Farrellys had a little bit of an influence there too, with stuff like what was that? It was something about Mary, she puts the jizz in her hair because she thinks somehow he got semen on his ear, and she puts the jizz in her hair, and there's that cut to the scene where it's like, sticking straight up, and it's like rock solid, and he zipped his balls up in the pants, and it even shows like the little bit of scrotum sticking out of it. Like there's like a quick cut. That's kind of like, that's like the wow kind of gross out factor. Like they actually cut to a zipper containing like a fake scrotum, but like, so the audience doesn't just imagine his scrotum being zipped up in his zipper, but they show it, and that's part of like the subversive nature of what the Farrellys were doing, at least early on. And then Me, Myself, and Irene, they went on to like some gross out stuff, like she pegged him with a dildo and stuff. I mean, it's like, it was pretty extreme and over the top. They carried some of that stuff through. I think Waiting has some of that like really kind of like, it's just supposed to like almost shock, maybe not quite shock you, but almost shock you with the humor. And so there's like sort of a turning point, because I think a lot of that stuff is like, oh, that's old, we've left that behind, like we've matured. But I think, something like 40-Year-Old Virgin has remained pretty well in the zeitgeist, despite being 20 years old now. Whereas something that's just about as old, like Waiting, is, Justin Long kind of had his moment. And I think he's kind of, obviously he's still doing stuff. We've seen Barbarian, but he's not like headlining stuff. He's doing Barbarian, where he's kind of a shitheel who eventually gets killed. And so Ryan Reynolds, though, I mean, you think back and it's like, he was a name. You'd sort of seen him. He was in Blade Trinity. He had done a TV show, I think, at that point. This is like, he was still sort of trying to launch like the A-list. He wasn't anywhere near that yet. Like, he wasn't Deadpool. It was like, oh shit, like Ryan Reynolds. Like, it was still sort of pre-Ryan Reynolds, but and even kind of before Anna Faris. I mean, she had done Scary Movie, I think, at that point, right? Anyway, I do think Waiting is one of the ones that sort of got forgotten, where something like 40-Year-Old Virgin just carried forward. I agree, Lone Wolf and Cub is awesome. I have not read the manga, because the manga has been, until very recently, it's been spottier. It's been more out of print. And for a while, I thought about collecting the floppies that were originally put out by Dark Horse, because by and large, original manga floppies from like the late 80s and 90s are insanely cheap. Mostly nobody wants them. So you can go into a comic book shop and you can ask them, especially if the comic book shop's been there for a little bit, you can like say, hey, where are your back issues? And do you guys have like the old like Viz manga in your back issues? And they'll point you to a couple of long boxes that are filled with, floppy manga that they got back in, 1994, that's literally just been sitting in that box since 1994. And they're usually more than happy to give it to you for, $2 for $1. And that's actually like in recent years, I got all of the Crying Freemans that way. And that's how I read Crying Freeman, because that's another one that's like grotesquely out of print and overpriced. If you try to buy the graphic novels on eBay or something, it's just out of print now. So, fork over $300 or, fist yourself. Lone Wolf and Cub was like that with the original manga. I think Dark Horse commissioned, I believe, Frank Miller to do some original artwork for the covers, which was insanely smart on their part, but it resulted in those being a little bit more of a collector's item than like old issues of Ranma. And so unfortunately I saw the prices of those. I was like, yeah, I'm not gonna do that. That's gonna take money away from my my steelbook and slipcase addiction. And God knows I need that shit. So, you know, when they started publishing the omnibus, though, I need to go back and read them because I've watched the films. That's a Criterion Collection high recommend for me. If you don't have the Lone Wolf and Cub Blu-ray set yet, that is such an easy purchase during the Blu-ray sale because you'll get 9 movies, and I think when it's on sale at Barnes & Noble, it's something like $40 or $50 for 9 movies on Blu-ray, plus, you know, replete with special features. So Lone Wolf and Cub is great, especially if you like that kind of grindhouse sort of, it's like mid to late 60s, but it's like very action forward versus something like Seven Samurai, which is more, you know, artistic and really more to do with like themes of heroism and you know, commentary on the samurai as a caste system and their interaction with the lower castes like the peasants and stuff. With Lone Wolf and Cub, you know, don't worry about any of that shit. He's gonna cut some people open and there'll be like a sunset silhouette of some guy with blood spurting 3 feet into the air, and it's just it's incredible. So yeah, Lone Wolf and Cub is some good shit. Sup, nerds? Sup, nerds? What up, Daniel? Hey, better late than never, and sometimes it's even cooler to show up late. Yes, okay, so bridge. One bridge? I don't know. Bridge or one bridge? I don't know if I'm calling it right. Is that Bridge? I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but yes, you were asking me if I was a fan of Critical Drinker, and I think that's usually his critique. I mean, it seems like he views things with an eye to, like, you know, is there something that's particularly, like, especially politically correct about this media? And political correctness, for those of you guys who are especially young in this chat, it's what we used to call wokeness. Back before woke used to mean, and I sort of regret that it went this way, because I think even like a decade ago, woke was kind of like you were a stoner and you were like wicked into conspiracy theories and you knew that the CIA was the bad guys. That was being woke like 20 years ago or 15 years ago. Being woke just meant that you had your eyes open to the truth about the world, and not that you were like especially politically correct. I think woke has in more recent years obviously become the term for like political correctness on steroids, but political correctness was what we used to call it back in the 90s. We're like, yeah, I mean, obviously that politician wants to say the N-word, but they're not going to because they're being politically correct. That was sort of the lexicon 30 to 35 years ago. But yeah, I mean, I would say too much of anything is not good for the media. And I think, you know, I will say that I do miss the sensibilities of films like Commando. I miss the over-the-top violence. I miss the gratuitous nudity. And, you know, I apologize for the maleness of my gaze, but I do like full frontal nudity in films. And I'm not covering my eyes. I'm not looking away. I am gazing. And, you know, I apologize to people for that. But, you know, I like nudity in films. So, you know, it is what it is. Mezzolene, making plenty of money off folks who like nudity in movies. So, yeah, Jeff, I think you have a phenomenal point. I agree wholeheartedly. I think I may have even voiced a similar opinion that Ryan is just, he is just silently. In fact, if I disappear tonight, it's either the CIA because I talked a bunch of shit, but it might not be the CIA because that might be too obvious for them now, and I haven't really given anything big away. So it might actually be Ryan Reynolds that takes me out tonight, just because I've proselytized in favor of waiting, and he knows that he says the FAG word in that movie, and he needs to keep it on the hush so he can make another $1 billion Deadpool film at some point in time. So quite possibly, like I go outside to check my mail and there's like a bag thrown over my head. I'm thrown in a panel van, and Ryan Reynolds himself beats me near death with a baseball bat in a cornfield and then buries me still partially alive. So that's probably going to be the way I go. What up, Tyler? I'm guessing your name is Tyler based on, maybe your first name is that, but I doubt it. I think your name is probably Tyler. So, what up? I am the Vicar of Vinegar Syndrome, and it is, you spelled it right, Vicar. So no one's gonna get in any trouble tonight because I said Vicar and you spelled it correctly, and I believe I'm pronouncing it correctly. Oh yeah, I didn't get to Cowboy Bebop. I own the Cowboy Bebop Steelbook, and I have to confess I have seen like all but the last 3 episodes. And I find that, and I haven't seen the movie yet, unfortunately, because it's, there's just no real good way to consume it at this point. I don't know if it's streaming. It might be streaming on something like Crunchyroll, which I don't have, but I did watch most of Cowboy Bebop when it was on Hulu, and then I lost access to Hulu. And I bought the Steelbook of Cowboy Bebop, meaning to like rewatch it. I haven't gotten around to it yet. I think Cowboy Bebop is like, it's a little different than Evangelion, but it's another one that people like big dick Cowboy Bebop pretty hard. I feel like it's not bad. It definitely has like a little bit less of a pretentious vibe than Evangelion. I don't feel like they're going quite for that. It has a vibe, but I also feel like it's maybe a little overlong, and it might meander a little bit. I think maybe it would have been better as like a, 6-part OVA or a 10-part OVA series or something like that, instead of like a television show that had 20-something episodes. That's another one that was like basically the same length, more or less, as Evangelion. And, I feel like Cowboy Bebop, yeah, pretty cool. The characters are definitely a lot of fun. The design is great. I like the sort of, it's, you can't really call it, it's sort of like reverse steampunk almost. Like steampunk is like Victorian, but like, oh, hey, we've managed to create this flying contraption out of like wood and old-timey gears and shit. This is almost reverse because they've got like spaceships and warp drives and all of the sci-fi stuff you expect, like even cybernetic arms and like enhancements to the body. But then there's still like the characters sort of have this, mid-90s kind of like hip, cool, we watch a lot of Tarantino movies and Hong Kong cinema kind of vibe to them. Like we wear sunglasses and smoke cigarettes and pop our collars like we're in a Hong Kong cinema film circa 1992, but, we're on spaceships and stuff like that. So it's almost like a weird reverse steampunk kind of thing. And maybe there's a word for that, but I don't dislike Cowboy Bebop, and I do need to rewatch it all the way through and catch the ending, because I feel like you also can't really form an opinion on something if you haven't seen how it ends. If you watch most of a movie but you don't see how the various like plots and subplots sort of weave together and resolve, then you could miss something that really elevates that film in your eyes. You could walk out of a movie 3/4 of the way and it's like a D- in your book, but if it ends a certain way and the way it ties things up and resolves and what it says about its themes and stuff, you might wind up like, well, okay, like that's a B now if I saw the ending. So I will reserve final judgment on Cowboy Bebop because I need to watch it. So, oh geez, did you get the 4K? Daniel, Mr. Banks, did you get the 4K? Because if you got the limited edition 4K of Dark City, congratulations. How much did you pay for that bad boy? I hope you didn't overpay for it, because that's been out of print, I think, for a little while now. And I have to say that Dark City is one that I was not as big a fan of when I watched it the first time. I think the second time, it was 04, 05. I had it on DVD and I watched it around, 04, 05, maybe 06. And I hadn't seen it since then. I just remember thinking like, yeah, it's okay. I took a chance on the 4K, and man, when I rewatched that 4K that Arrow put out last year, I remember thinking like, damn, this is it. Like I really enjoyed that movie a ton more on my most recent rewatch. So that's one reason why a lot of people say they'll watch something, and if they don't love it, they don't keep it. They'll sell it or give it away or whatever. And I do actually hang on to films sometimes that I don't love. I don't really like that. I don't know how that sat with me, but I'll revisit it. And I've liked things. I didn't like cheesecake until I was like 18 or 19. Like I had cheesecake for sure. I'd eaten cheesecake, but never much. Like I would try a bite and I'd be like, yeah, I don't really like that. And I know that makes me a crazy person because cheesecake is like, it's one of the most delicious things in the world. How could I not like that? I like it now. It's okay. But I finally tried it and it just finally clicked. But for a long time, I would eat a bite of cheesecake and I don't like that at all. I don't want cheese in my dessert. But one day it just things lined up properly and it clicked. And I'm like, oh, okay, I get cheesecake now. Like my palate was refined enough at that point that when it landed. And so it was good. It was good. Do I hate? I mean, that's a tough one. I think that one could get you into some trouble because, you know, if you say, well, I don't hate, but I strongly dislike hate, maybe to the point that I hate, I don't know, man. I think there you've lived long enough to see yourself become the villain. I think in that case, if you take it that far, I think I pity hate. I think I might feel bad for people who are consumed with that emotion a lot. You know, regardless of where it's pointed and how justified you may be, I think that it's the type of thing that's not good for you. Like, even though you hate this other person and you might think like, man, fuck that guy did this, that, and the other. He ran off with my first wife or whatever. I don't like that guy because he stole all my money and he robbed me or whatever. Like, you know, you're not hurting him. Like, if he ran off with your wife and they're on some sunny beach in Florida, in Miami, enjoying all the money that they stole from you, you could be, you know, in your shitty apartment thinking how much you hate them. But that's not hurting them. They're out on the beach. They're enjoying the sunshine. So who are you hurting by thinking that way? You know, just go down and get even, you know, burn their house down. You know what I mean? Steal your money back, break their kneecaps, you know, but don't do it hatefully, right? Obviously do it from a place of love. Say, I'm putting your head in a vice like the movie Casino, but it's from a place of love. All right. It's not because I hate you, because hate is, it's obviously it's a feeling that I'm holding in my heart. So who's the one feeling that negative emotion? It's me. That's a punishment you give yourself. So instead, just go burn their house down, and then, you don't have to burden yourself with these negative emotions. I think Buddhism is a lot about letting go, which is why it resonates very well with me, because you can just let go of some of that stuff. You can learn and practice that, and that can be part of your practice of that. Did anybody pre-order Frankenhooker? I thought about it. I really did think about it. I've got the page open in my my browser. I've got the page open. I've added to my cart. I just, I need to pull the trigger on that pre-order. But it's going to happen, whether it's tonight or tomorrow or next week or next month. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. Okay, never saw that. I've been meaning to watch Renfield because it did look interesting to me, but I have not gotten around to it. Bull Moose has a copy of the Steelbook. I'm just waiting to find it. Like, if I go into Bull Moose and they have a copy of it pre-owned, the Steelbook, and it's, $17, no brainer. Like, I'm going to grab that. I'll walk out with it that day. So that's really, I'm teetering on that line. The right day, the right price, it's coming home with me, and I'll probably watch it that night. Yeah. Tyler, agreed. It is kind of strange when you have filmmakers like the Coen brothers. There are filmmakers like this. Certainly, it's not just the Coen brothers, but there are, a handful of filmmakers who are super well-renowned, who have tons of movies that are, up there in terms of prestige, and they're sort of known as auteurs. And for some reason, there's still films of theirs that are not available on 4K, which is odd given that the 4K format is something like a decade old at this point. I think the first 4Ks, the earliest 4Ks did come out in 2016, I think, or like the very end of 2016, very beginning of 2017. At any rate, it's about 10 years old now as a format. So it's a bit surprising that we've gone 10 years without like major auteurs having their entire filmographies put on 4K. It's really weird. And Raising Arizona is another one. I mean, Criterion's been doing their damnedest to put out all of the Coen brothers. I was surprised when Criterion got No Country for Old Men, simply because of the level of popularity of that film and how well it did critically and commercially. I just figured that was one of the ones that the studios weren't going to let go of. Yeah, they'll let go of Miller's Crossing and Blood Simple, but like they weren't going to let go of a really big one, Fargo. They're not going to, although I think what is Shout has Fargo, so it's not like it didn't go to a boutique. But I know Criterion lusts over the entirety of the Coen brothers' filmography, so you have to imagine that Criterion would if Criterion could. And so maybe one day they will, because they did it with No Country for Old Men. Speaking of the 4K format, one of the things that I had queued up to actually discuss, just in case, I didn't know there were going to be this many people in the chat, and the chat was going to be like popping off. So I actually made some notes of like, what are some things I want to talk about, just in case there's tumbleweeds in the chat, and I got to like, you know, if I have to dance and I don't got nobody to dance with, I can't do any crowd work. I have to talk about topics, but the increase in sales of the 4K UHD format was something that I wanted to discuss. Although I do plan to do like a full video on the topic, because I did start to look into it today. One of the cool things about having my kids and being like Mr. Mom today was that I was just, you know, I did have some time to like open my computer, and I couldn't really do any real work because the kids would keep interrupting me, but I could like do some reading and a little bit of research and dig into the data around the reporting that we've heard that the 4K sales were up 12% when you compare 2025 to 2024. What that means is, and I looked at the data, and it's not units sold. It's not like a 12% increase in units sold would be like we sold 100 units last year, we sold 112 this year. 12 is 12% of 100, so 112 would be a 12% increase over last year's 100. That's just easy round math, counting units. But this was actually reported as sales increase, like money. They made 12% more money than they did in a previous year. What that means is that if you make more money, it doesn't necessarily mean you sold more product. You might have increased the price of a product and made more money that way by increasing a price of a product. So, you know, the metric I think is an important nuance, but the other important thing that like should temper, like it's a good thing, right? I mean, I feel plussed that 4K UHD sales increased by such a dramatic percent, but the thing to sort of keep in mind is that this is good news, but also 4K UHD disc sales fell every single year starting in 2018. So like it's been like dick in the dirt every single year. Like that dick is going deeper into the dirt every single year from 2018 to 2024. 2025 is like the first jump up. So you have to kind of imagine a line chart where like year over year, like sales are going down, down, down. And then they pop back up this most recent year. So it's great for like year over year if we're only looking back 1 year. But year over year, if you look back to 2018, it may not be as favorable, you know, overall since the dawn of that disc format. But then the improvement in 4K UHD sales 2025 versus 2024 is exclusive to UHD. It does not include DVD sales or Blu-ray sales. So it's not an overall win for all the physical media, because the truth is, when you consider all disc-based movie media, DVD, Blu-ray, and 4K UHD all together, 2025 was still down by 9.3% compared to 2024. It's just that DVD and Blu-ray did bad enough to bring 4K UHD down. Like they did bad. 4K UHD by itself did good, only compared to itself. But when you consider all physical media together, it's still lower. So again, I'm going to do a video on this where I can like put up an analysis over here. I can put up some images and graphs and charts and shit that I'll create to sort of illustrate what I'm saying. Because what you guys don't know about me is that like my entire adult life, I've done data now. Like before I was a landlord and shit, I did, and before I was a phenomenally underrated YouTuber, I do data analysis. So that's like been my gig for my whole life. And so I think I'm like well prepared professionally to do some of this analysis and sort of interpret what that means. But I do think, just a quick like spoiler for you guys who are just cool enough to hang out with me tonight, what that means, I think there's a few like just initial kind of takeaways that I'm taking from spending an hour reading about this and looking at. I actually went to the website to look at the data too. Like, you know, there's everybody's reading Reddit and other, you know, Yahoo News and stuff where it's like, oh, 4K UHD sales is up 12%. I was like, I want to see the source. I'm going to the data. So I went to actually look at the group, the media group, the entertainment media group that reports this data. And so I'll do a whole thing on this. But so I think some of the takeaways, the initial takeaways that I have, is a little bit of bad news, a little bit of good news. The bad news is that like overall physical media still seems like it's on the decline in 2025. Like overall, we're considering DVD and Blu-ray in that as well. So like I'm assuming Walmart, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, these like big retailers, these like normie retailers where like normies go to buy DVDs and Blu-rays, they're selling fewer of these items, right? I think streaming continues to be the preferred product of normies. My beloved younger brother is in this chat, or has been in this chat. I love him. Unconditionally. I don't love him less that he doesn't have a Blu-ray player, but obviously the guy doesn't have a Blu-ray player, so he's streaming. I think, you know, most normies are streaming because they perceive this cost savings. It's cheaper than buying a $90 copy of Ben-Hur in this slipcase with posters and stuff. But then there's the convenience that comes with streaming. Although, you know, that's arguable as well. I'll delve into that in the future. But I think the good news that's indicated by this is that even though like normies are sloughing off physical media, I think the niche portion of the market is growing. I mean, we saw 4K UHD grow. We know that the 4K UHD numbers got better from 25 versus 24. So that means like the people like us, the weirdos, like the psychopaths, we're definitely doing a little bit better, and 4K UHD is doing better probably because of you know, the weirdos who like still cling, maybe irrationally, but cling to physical media. And so it again, it's sales, it's sales number in millions of dollars spent. So it's not units sold. So we don't know that more units were sold. We do know that more money was made. And so whether that's a product of more collectors coming to the hobby, or collectors buying more units, or people are just charging more, like the prices have gone up and they made more money by increasing prices by $5 or $10 a unit. All we know is that the money collected went up. So we don't know that there's necessarily more collectors, because it could just be that they're charging more. But it does mean that one or several of those options are happening. I mean, they're not mutually exclusive. So there might be more collectors that are buying more units, but we're also paying a little bit more per unit. So that might all be factoring in to that 4K format. We might be buying fewer DVDs and Blu-ray at retail and opting for 4K because we're the psychopaths with like the home theater setup, and we spent all this time on our, you know, 4K, selecting a 4K TV and selecting a sound system and stuff. And so, yeah, you want to put a disc in. Like when you bought all this shit, you got all the toys, like you want to put a disc in and see how amazing it looks. So I think, you know, like my takeaway is when it comes to multi-billion-dollar studios like Paramount, Sony, Disney, I mean, I'm not sure that this increase in 4K UHD sales will encourage them to commit more resources to physical. They might just keep doing what they're doing and putting out a little bit because there's still some money to be made there. But I don't know if that like really turns their heads. And like causes their eyes to open, or if they're just like, okay, it's still limping along, but overall total disc sales of all formats is still down. I'm still thinking that maybe they don't get a boner for that. But I also think the good news is that the boutiques, they're probably feeling that increase in collector spending. They're probably feeling that increase in money spent on 4K. So it's good for companies like Criterion, Arrow, Vinegar Syndrome, all the ones that we love. I think it's good for them. I think that means more money for these smaller companies that are definitely they're serving us as niche collectors. So I think that's probably a good thing for them. And I think if they're doing good, if Criterion, Arrow, Vinegar Syndrome, if they're all doing better, then and larger studios aren't really, it doesn't move the needle too much on them, they might actually be able to license more stuff from studios in the future. There might be more stuff coming from studios to boutiques like Criterion and Arrow, just because the studio's like, well, there's a little bit of money in it, but it's not really worth it for us to commit resources, and they might wind up downgrading their physical media departments because they can just outsource that to Criterion and just collect a license fee. So we'll have to see where it goes. I mean, this is obviously predicting the future is obviously not my forte, but I thought that was interesting, and it was something that I wanted to mention today because I spent some time looking at the data. So, that's what it is. What up, Views Parallax? Yeah. And it changes by generation, doesn't it? Because, like, if you said the F word in front of my grandma, but, like, nowadays, I'm like, whatever, it's the F word. It's not, like, my grandma definitely would have objected to the F word, But nowadays, it's like, whatever. It's not like a racial or ethnic slur, so who cares? You can say the F word a little bit. John Doe Juggalo, chuckling at something. Hey, Views Parallax, I appreciate you saying that. I'm going to try to act cool like it doesn't really matter, but it does, and that type of thing touches me, so I'm glad when people enjoy the stupid things that come out of my mouth sometimes. So, bro, were you a bartender in college, man? I have heard from people. I never worked in, I mean, I was a busboy. Okay, I did work in a restaurant. I was a busboy, but I never served. So, I've heard from people who did that it's like phenomenally accurate. Like the people who made it obviously knew about. And I think waiting's an interesting example of what I like to call the occupation subgenre of comedy, where and there's a few films like this. Office Space is probably one of the big ones where the comedy all kind of takes place in and around the workplace, and the workplace culture is very prominent in the narrative. So, I think maybe 40-Year-Old Virgin might sort of qualify a little bit for this as well, because so much of it takes place in smart tech. Waiting is like this because basically the entire film occurs within a shift at the restaurant. Tower Records might be kind of like this. Office Space is certainly like this, but it's also where it like sort of delves into the culture of this workplace. Like part of the world building is them creating this like fake company that sort of serves as the setting, but you could tell they took a lot of care and time to sort of build it into a space that very much feels like lived and real. And so I think Waiting is very successful because so many people have told me like, holy shit, that felt like my real life experience when I was waiting tables or whatever. So Tyler, I'm glad to hear that you said that. Maybe one day I'll pull some notes together on what I've been kicking ideas around for about 15 years on that occupational comedy subgenre, because it's one that I enjoy. I think there's just something kind of cozy, I guess, about like getting to know someone's workplace in that way, even if it's fictional, and getting to know the kind of workplace culture of these like fictional characters. So I think there's some charm there, I should say. So I might wind up doing a video where I try to pull my thoughts together in a semi-cogent way. Oh, Hagen, what up, dog? Go Dogs, dog. Anybody in here is a Bulldogs fan? Drinks are on the house tonight, okay? I'm buying around for the Bulldogs fans. I love you people. Daniel, you must be talking about the dark. Okay, you're talking about, it took me a second because it's late at night and I have children and they get me up early in the morning. My brain don't function too good at midnight, but yeah, $44 is not too shabby for the 4K, which has been gone for several months now of Dark City. And so that, yeah, very good job. Very good job. Was it pre-owned? Because that's awesome. I do love a physical media store. It sounds like you walked in, you didn't just order it from their website. So that's what I like to do with Bull Moose. I mean, I will sometimes go check their website to see, because they have a website. They show you the stock of things. So sometimes I'm just curious. I'm like, do they have this? I'm looking for it. I'll punch it in and see if they've got it. I was looking for an Arrow. It was an Arrow chunky box 4K the other day, and I couldn't find it there, but I looked. And I do like, sometimes you'll walk in though and there'll be, you know, some pre-owned item right there on the shelf and you'll be able to snag something nice. I always love that. It's always a little surprise, you know? It's not, maybe not as good as Christmas, but it's a little surprise and I like it. Diner. I'm surprised Diner's not on. Tin Men, maybe not as much. But Diner, man, that's one that people talk about a lot. I'm kind of surprised that one doesn't get a 4K, hasn't got a 4K yet. Tender Mercies with Robert Duvall. R.I.P. Robert Duvall. I think Robert Duvall might be a little underrated. I think maybe not tremendously underrated, but I think he is he's one of those guys that's just, you know, he's done a ton of work, but you know, and he's worked with very prestigious filmmakers. You know, it's not like he was unrecognized. But I think he's maybe one of those guys that, like, for the past 10 years ago or so, people would, you know, Duvall was solid, but there were no like Duvall stands out there that were like, yeah, Duvall's my boy, number one. I'm getting all the Duvall movies. Like, I don't feel like he'd quite hit that level. So I think he might have been like 10% underrated a little bit, like less than what his level deserved for just, you know, how good he was. You know, because he was solid, but I don't think he ever really, you know, got to a point, you know, like some of his co-stars did, like, you know, Al Pacino, might have been overshadowed a little bit by Al Pacino. And, I mean, he worked with Kevin Costner in Open Range. I was talking to my dad about Open Range today. I was hanging out with my dad a little bit, and we were chatting movies, and he was like, you ever seen Open Range? I'm like, I was like, bitch, please. I was like, do you know who you're even talking to? Why would you ask me if I had ever seen that film, you know? Come up with something obscure if you're going to ask me if I've ever seen it. Anyway, he was like, I really like that Open Range movie. I was like, yeah, it's a good one. He's like, I was watching it the other day, and I don't know if I don't really do a good impression of my dad. I don't think he really sounds like that, but anyway, Open Range, that's a good one. Robert Duvall's got some cold-blooded lines in that one. Yeah, there we go. Just odd when you've got, you know, it's just movies that are still locked on DVD. That's just weird. There was another thing I was going to do today. I got a box in the mail from Orbit DVD. You guys order from Orbit? I don't hear anything moving in here. You know I love that. I do not hear the movie moving around in here. It feels very secure. I've ordered from Orbit several times. I don't know that I've ever gotten a box like this. See how thin that one is? But I only ordered one film, and it's because I'm afraid it's going to be out of print. I'm afraid it's going away because it's not on Amazon anymore. It was removed from my cart on Amazon. I was like patiently waiting for it to get cheaper, and unfortunately, it disappeared. Disappeared from Diabolic, had no copies left. Orbit didn't have any left. Bull Moose sold all their copies. I was at Bull Moose, and they sold all their copies in one day. I don't know if it's going to be like Hard Boiled, where it comes back and everybody's just freaking out. But I went ahead and pulled the trigger because I did not want to shit the bed and miss this one. So I'm going to try not to slice my finger open and need stitches on the stream. I try to act like I'm incapable of embarrassment, but I do think that would embarrass me a little bit if I either spine slash this thing or like slash my finger open. Would you rather spine slash a movie, you know, put a cut in your chunky box, or would you rather slice your finger deep enough that you would have to go to the hospital and have stitches? That's my question for you. Which one would you rather? You're either getting stitches in the finger, or you're basically living with a slash on the exterior of your movie. I'm going with finger because that shit will heal. But that movie, that ain't healing. Look at this. This is why I couldn't hear anything moving in there, because Orbit, look at what Orbit did. And again, I'm not sponsored. This is not the moment where I sold out to Orbit. Orbit's done nothing for me, and I've never received anything for free. But this movie is wrapped up in this beautiful bubble wrap. So that is why it wasn't rattling around. And I appreciate that. Orbit, I think, is the one who kind of said they didn't want to do a lot of, I think they wanted to opt out of like some of those like really prestige, like the Keep from Vinegar Syndrome, because they don't get enough copies. And when something gets dinged in the mail, like a corner gets kind of dinged a little bit in the mail and people complain, they don't have copies to replace it with. So they're like, we don't want to deal with it. And so you know they're going to wrap shit up pretty good because they don't want me calling to complain that my corner got dinged. Anyway, the movie that I picked up that I just unboxed for you guys is Excalibur 4K. I was surprised to see this bad boy disappear. But yeah. It wasn't on Amazon. There was a copy for like, I don't know, $57 on Amazon. Like, you know, I'm not doing that. And it wasn't on Diabolic, although Diabolic did say more on the way. I wasn't sure I was trusting it, and I didn't want to wait. So I did want to pull the trigger on, and Orbit still had a few copies. Diabolic did not. Bull Moose did not. Amazon did not. Orbit did, and so I pulled the trigger on old Excalibur. I wanted to wait to get it for like $30, but I think I paid 38 or 39 instead. Whatever. It's the price I pay to be assured that I get a copy versus kind of crossing my fingers, hoping, and then, you know, paying $90 for it later on down the line. So I have not yet seen Excalibur, but I heard from my good buddy Chase at AV Pop Culture that it's okay. It's not one of Arrow's like top tier transfers. It's like mid tier, at least for Arrow, and they've got a couple of different cuts, which I like. I always like when they give you like two cuts of the film. Not that I ever watch them back to back, although I sometimes would like when they do two cuts of the film. Like give me like a short video that compares the two cuts and contrasts them, because you're gonna be hard pressed to like watch a movie and then like start over and watch it again and like notice where they're different, unless they're really wildly different. And you'd almost have to watch them back to back. But if I watch it, like I'll watch the director's cut, and then like 2 years later when I'm watching it again, I'll watch the TV cut, and I won't be able to keep it in my head. I would appreciate like a video that does like more of a side by side. Maybe I should look for that on YouTube, because I'm sure. Yeah, I mean, Jeff, I'm with you. I think, you know, the DVD thing, it's sort of like vinyl was. I think, you know, vinyl made a comeback, obviously. If you think back to, I don't know, the year 2000, everybody's, you know, sort of getting over CDs and starting to get into MP3, starting to get into like a lot of that like Napster and shit like that for file sharing. And, you know, it was way cheaper to just download a whole bunch of music for $0 than to buy a bunch of CDs at $15 a pop. So, I think vinyl eventually made a comeback because circa 2000, 2001, 2002, did anybody want vinyl? Nobody fucking wanted vinyl. Vinyl was like the shit my mom had a crate of down in the basement, and nobody was touching it. Nobody's so much easier to have a playlist and just hit play and shuffle, and you've got 18 hours of music on your hard drive. It was just so much easier to do that than it was to fuck with CDs and all this other shit. So I think vinyl eventually made a comeback because people were finding it again at garage sales and thrift stores, Goodwill and stuff. You could go into Goodwill. Even today, you can go into Goodwill and get a record for $3. The problem is all the shit at Goodwill is stuff that nobody wants because now there's a collector's market for vinyl. But I think 20 years ago, 25 years ago, there wasn't as much of a, it was still a little, there were always like weird, like Beatles people and Led Zeppelin people that were like, old and into it. But for young people, I mean, people who never had a record player, I'm talking about people who are even younger than me, who they never owned a record player like until they were adults. DVD might be one of those things. And I think DVD also benefits from the fact that even if you have a 4K player, you can still buy and play DVDs. Unlike the several iterations of music physical media, it's not like you could pop a cassette tape into a CD player. Now, a lot of times the devices that you bought, you'd buy a large, one of these big units back in the 90s or whatever, early 2000s. It was a large unit, might even have built-in speakers, and it would have maybe like, here's 2 cassette decks down here, and here's a CD player up here, and here's a radio tuner here. So you could buy a big thing, but you couldn't, you still had to put your tapes into the tape thing and the CDs into the CD thing. Now it's, there's just a disc slot. I can put my DVD in there. I can put a music CD in there and play music through my television speakers if I want to, or my surround sound if I want to. But so I think DVD definitely benefits from, whatever you have. If it's a disc player, if it's a Blu-ray player, you can watch DVDs. If it's a 4K player, you can watch DVDs. So I think DVD benefits from the fact that it's like, it was just mass produced to the point where almost none of it is rare enough, like scarce enough to really fetch a nasty price. So most of the stuff was just printed at such a high print run that there's like a gajillion DVD copies of Goodwill Hunting. You know what I mean? It's not like you're ever going to pay more than $3 for a used DVD of Goodwill Hunting. So I think that will benefit DVD in the long run for people who, young people, 20-year-olds who, you think you're 20, you don't have a lot of disposable income to spend on a hobby. So like, you can go to Goodwill with $15 in your pocket and go home with 5 movies on DVD. And so I think that has an appeal to people, as well as obviously owning the DVD and not having to search all over your various streaming services to find out where that movie is, and or buying that movie digitally just to lose it later. So I think, there's the ownership of the physical thing, but then there's also, I mean, you can go like thrifting or garage sale hopping and you can get so many DVDs so cheap. And there's just something fun about like having a stack of DVDs that like you can't even hold with 2 hands, like, yo, look what I got. Like, it's just kind of cool to come home with this big haul and like, I only spent $20. That's why I like those old manga floppies, like for $1 each. Like, I can take $25 into an old comic book shop and, I could be like, yo, I'll just give you $25 for this like whole long box of manga, and no one else is ever going to come in and offer you a penny for these. So they always say yes, and you walk out of there with like, my wife is like, what are you going to fucking do with 100 more comic books? I'm like, read them, duh. She's like, no, where are you going to fucking put them? I'm like, yeah. Oh, yeah, somebody finally answered my question. The Fabulous Stains box set is nice. Oof. I might pull the trigger on that one even before Frankenhooker, just because I think Frankenhooker might be around a little longer than Fabulous Stains. But anyway, got to get that deluxe box because that thing looks nice. That looks nice. Maybe for my next stream, like I like to do commentary stream. I mean, I like to do live streams, and I will do one next Friday. It's Friday the 13th again. We had a Friday the 13th last month. We're getting a Friday the 13th this month. I'll do a commentary for Friday the 13th part 4 next Friday. So we'll watch it together. Obviously, I'll have to cover it up for YouTube, but we can watch Friday the 13th part 4 together and vibe and hang out and do that on Friday, March 13th. That'll be pretty cool. But yeah, I mean, like I always like doing the commentary tracks where I like actually watch a movie and do a commentary, do a watch along live. So doing one of those, I mean, I think Waiting was one that I had always intended to do, but just never got around to it. So that could be a fun one to do. George C. Scott is another one who's maybe a little bit underrated. He's got a few big performances like Patton, Changeling, and a few others. He did A Christmas Carol. Didn't he do A Christmas Carol? He did A Christmas Carol. I don't think that was a theatrical film. I think that one was released to television, but even still, George C. Scott is a name, right? He's known. I'm surprised. I also love Orbit. I don't use them weekly. I heard, actually, Orbit did a live stream, I don't know, a couple days ago. It was quite recently. And someone in the live stream asked, what's the record number of orders year to date for 2026 so far? Like, who's the person, like, not who, because you can't reveal their name, but like, is there, like, what's the highest number of orders year to date in 2026 so far? Like, knowing that we're basically 2 months into the year. And I think his answer was like 452. So like, I don't know who that is, but there's some speculation going around the internet that like somebody's placed 452 orders from Orbit in the first, I don't know, like 60 days of the year. Like January's 31 days plus 28 days in February plus a few days in March. Yeah, okay, about 60 days. Wild if somebody's managed to, but that's like, what is that? That's like fucking 8 orders a day or something. I don't know. Which just doesn't even really seem to make sense, because why would you? I'm guessing some of those get packaged together if you're at the point that you're pulling the trigger on 8 orders a day. So I don't know. Shot the Moon. And I mean, Diane Keaton recently passed. That's another thing, is when an actor passes, or any filmmaker really, it doesn't have to be an actor, any filmmaker passes, I think this is the golden opportunity for any films that have not yet been released, especially on like the latest and greatest format. Like, do some releases, people. Like, I know it takes a little while to do like a proper, and of course we as collectors want a proper release. We want a really good, thorough remaster and transfer. We want the thing to look good because we're paying good money for it. In some cases, as much as, you know, 40, 50 bucks for some of these 4Ks. But even still, like, at least put the announcement out there. You know, Robert Redford passes away. Okay, we're the rights holders for these other films. We're gonna commit to putting them out, and we're gonna, you know, put the announcements out there. I do wish that, and Albert Finney's been gone for a little while too, but Diane Keaton having recently passed, I mean, that's a good opportunity. Westworld is like next on my list. I gotta grab that. It's Yul Brynner, based on the Michael Crichton. So, you know, I gotta check out Westworld again. I haven't seen it in a long time. I watched like the first 2 seasons of the television show because I had a buddy who worked on it. Actually, he's a props master, and he worked on it. And so I was like, oh, cool. You know, like, I'll check out anything that he worked on, because that's cool. But I just remember they lost me a little in the second season. I think some things just don't need to be stretched out that long. I mean, I said that about Evangelion. No, I said that about Cowboy Bebop. I just think, you know, sometimes they stretch things. They try to milk it too much. They're doing an Exorcist reboot. And how well did the last Exorcist movie from a couple years back do? I don't think it did very well, and that's why they're not continuing that. That was supposed to be a trilogy. They nixed the other 2 in the trilogy, and then now they're rebooting it with Scarlett Johansson and Lawrence Fishburne and a bunch of other notable actors, and it's like, I don't know. I know you guys, I know The Exorcist is really well known, and it's a film franchise, and I know that the idea is we want to milk our franchises because they're recognizable and they'll make money, but I just feel like, you know, maybe The Exorcist has gone far enough. Maybe there's not anything new to be done with Exorcist, and the audience kind of knows it, at least on a subconscious level, and that's why they didn't turn up for Exorcist Believer. I have to imagine that they would have if there was something there. You know, it's just a shame because they're gonna do another Exorcist, and I don't know that I give a shit. And even with Scarlett Johansson, I'm not sure I give a shit. You know, I'm just not. I'm not feeling it. I kind of wish they do. Like, what do you do with an Exorcism movie? Like, I mean, Innocent young girl gets possessed. It's usually a young girl and not a boy because there's something more vulnerable about a female um, exorcism victim. You know, there's something just more, I don't know, like it could be that um, women gestate pregnancies. I mean, it could be that life grows inside of the womb in a normal circumstance. So there's just something about like another like life being inside the woman, and it being a demonic possession is sort of a subversion of what's normally considered like, oh, you know, conception of a baby. You've got this new life. It's very beautiful and people are very happy for you. And it's a very beautiful and like almost spiritual thing to have children. And so like the demonic possession is almost like a subversion of that maybe. And so maybe that's why they choose female protagonists most of the time, but like Exorcism of Emily Rose and the original Exorcist. And it's like, even the most recent one was 2 girls. And I just feel like, I don't know. So girl gets possessed. Obviously they get possessed by some really awful, terrible demon. They don't get possessed by like a nice guy. They're not like possessed by Saint Michael. They get possessed by Saint Patrick, and it's March and it's St. Patty's Day and they just turn into vicious alcoholics. I don't know. That's probably offensive to Irish people, right? You can't do that. Critical Drinker would get mad at me if you do that, right? I guess he's Scottish. I shouldn't. He's even more mad at me now for conflating the two. I'm probably going to get killed by the Irish now. Anyway, hey, you just made it home. You drove home from Athens? Dog. I hope that drive treated you well. How do you feel about the new Exorcist? Everybody, as well as my man's Chase. How do you feel about the idea of a yet another Exorcist film? Are they going to do anything new, or is it going to be, you know, demon possesses young girl's possessed by this horrible creature. This is a terrible demon. It's affecting everybody negatively. It's not like they get possessed by, oh, I got possessed by the spirit of Albert Einstein, and now I've got a straight A in math. I'm like, I got my physics degree and it's amazing. You know, like there's never like a good part of it. It's never a beneficial. It's always like, yeah, they vomit weird green shit that looks like pea soup and their head twists around and they piss themselves in the bed and you know, they turn the room cold, and then the priest always have to come and they always have to like labor over this exorcism, which is like, I don't know. I mean, you're not running a marathon in the summer heat. You're reading the Bible. Like, I get it. It's a stressful situation. I don't mean to belittle the act of exorcising demons, but at the same time, it's like, you know, come on. You're not bench pressing 405 pounds. I've done that. I've never exorcised a demon. Maybe it is harder than bench pressing 405 pounds, but I mean, you know, you're sitting there in a robe reading the Bible. It's cool and all, but you know, and that's always the demon, and you're always like looking around like, well, you know, come on, can I get some support on my side over here? Like, I'm just a lowly priest. Can I get like, I'm not even asking for like an archangel. Can I get like a lowly, how about Clarence from It's a Wonderful Life? Like, you sent an angel down to prevent just this regular Joe from jumping off a bridge. You can't send like half an angel down here to help me exorcise a whole ass demon out of a little girl that doesn't deserve that. Like, come on, let me get some support from the good side here. Where's my support? But they never get any support. They manage to exorcise the demon, but it typically costs at least somebody's life on the good side, whether it's the priest having to kill himself to get rid of the demon, which was repeated in End of Days, which was silly, or it's you know, it's the little girl passing away and Emily Rose. And you know, I just don't think they're going to do anything new. I think everything that needed to be done in the exorcism genre, I think it's been done, and they're not going to show me anything new. And if they do, I'll be so surprised I shit my pants. Era's Excalibur is excellent. Okay. I had heard that it was mid, at least in terms of like the visual presentation. I've heard that the special features and everything is great, and there's a great amount of content, and obviously the movie is very good. That's one that I've had on DVD since, I don't know, 2002. It's got the little click, the little black part that clicks, and it's the cardboard case. I still have it. I don't know if I'll be able to get rid of it, but Nerdy Panda, what's up, man? What's good? I have not said hi to you yet, but yeah. Vinyl is inferior. Okay. I mean, I sort of get you. I think, CDs obviously take up a little bit less space. They're smaller. So it might be easier to hoard a large collection. Whereas vinyl, I think, maybe more tough. I got kind of sucked into vinyl a little bit, maybe against my will. My mom had a shit ton of vinyl. She gave all of it to me except for the autographed Harry Chapin, and I didn't want Harry Chapin anyway because he may have been a sweet man, but his music can lick my whole ass. I mentioned earlier I don't like depressing shit, and that guy, Harry Chapin, made depressing shit his entire fucking genre. I ain't listening to no Harry Chapin. So I said, you could keep the Harry Chapin autograph shit because she met him. And I took the rest of her vinyl. And then her sister, my aunt, also had a shitload of vinyl, like the same amount as my mom. And she was like, I don't want this anymore. You take it. You're taking my whole record stereo system. So, you have to take my vinyl too. So I actually have duplicates of a lot of vinyl now because my aunt gave me all her vinyl. And then my father-in-law also has a ton of vinyl, and he does not have a record player. And he's like, come over anytime you want. You're going to get all this stuff when I pass away. So I have like half of his vinyl too. So I just sort of got pushed into vinyl. When you get it all for free, it's like, I don't know. I just got like 150 or 200 albums for nothing. So, yeah, I mean, I guess at the point in time where the only cost to me is $100 Audio-Technica turntable, like, yeah, okay. You got me into vinyl, guys. You appealed to my cheapness, and I guess I'm a vinyl collector now, so I have some vinyl. I would like for my Dexcom to please shut up. You don't really catch it in many of my videos because I usually edit it out, but this stupid thing likes to beep. There's no way to edit it out in a live stream. Stupid Dexcom is beeping. Okay, so I'm hearing Excalibur is a great transfer. Chase, fight these people, I guess. Hard not to watch it with Holy Grail in your mind. Yeah, that's true. And I did recently, I don't know, maybe it's probably been 6 months now, but I got the Monty Python and the Holy Grail 4K Steelbook, and because nostalgia. I mean, that's even more than Excalibur. Holy Grail is a very nostalgic film for me, being like a early adolescent, 12, 13, and finding that movie and just being, a silly idiot. I was like, oh, look, these guys are silly idiots too. This appeals. So I did recently watch the 4K of Monty Python. I wasn't blown away by the 4K of Monty Python and the Holy Grail. Nonetheless, I'm very glad to have it. It's the type of thing that needs to be rewatched. Annually, maybe not annually. 6,000 records. Okay. So what I will say about records is I do feel bad for vinyl collectors who were collecting vinyl 20, 25 years ago when it was like $3. And now the desirable shit is like, it's more expensive now. Especially if you're the type of person that insists on like first pressings and sealed copies. I've got a good buddy, a man whom I dearly love, my buddy Matt, just a phenomenal human being, but he does like to, like every now and again, he'll text me and he'll be like, oh, I got the first pressing of this Metallica album and, it was sealed. And I'm like, are you going to open it? Are you going to play it? I always have a hard time with the idea of like, I'm going to buy a $300 record, and it's $300 because it's a sealed first pressing, but I'm going to open it up and play it. Like, if you're just going to open it up and play it, like, I don't know, a Rhino Records did a $27 version of it 3 or 4 years ago. Like, if you're just going to play it, does it have to be the first pressing? Could it not be the 20 teens remaster? Maybe I'm a Philistine and I've just said something incredibly stupid to all of you people, and you're thinking what a dipshit I am for saying that. But I kind of feel like if your utility proposition for a vinyl record is less about collecting an item and more about having something that you can like listen to on the cheap, and you like the vinyl ecosystem, which appeals to me too. I mean, I do like some of that nostalgic sort of crackle and pop and the physical, putting the vinyl on, and like the largeness of the vinyl too is kind of nice from an artwork standpoint. Sometimes they open up to reveal more artwork. And so, when you can go into a Goodwill and get the Flashdance album, I got the Flashdance vinyl at the soundtrack for Flashdance for $3 at Goodwill. That was a find that day. I was so excited because it was $3 and it's got some great stuff on it. So why not? When you can do that, awesome. But like at the point in time that vinyl is now, like vinyl's vinyl now, is everything just expensive and does it suck? Because everybody wants like 25 and $30 for like, what is this? It's got shelfware all over it. It's not even like very fine condition. It's just, I just want to like throw it on and play Band on the Run for my kids. You know, I got that one for free from my father-in-law. But I do love me some Band on the Run, like the whole album, not just the song Band on the Run. But in fact, 1985 is my favorite track on that album, and it's the last one. But oh my God, I love 1985. That track slaps. I would play more music on my YouTube channel if YouTube would let me, because that track slaps. It's good. And I agree. I think vinyl is nostalgia for folks. I think vinyl, more than CD, it evokes the 70s and 80s where, CD existed in the 80s for sure, but it certainly wasn't the dominant physical media format that it would become in the 90s. I think you see a cassette tape, you see a record, you think 60s, you think 70s, you think 80s a lot for the cassette tape, but there's that nostalgia to it. I think it's also kind of like, I don't know if I'm just like, I don't know if I'm more sappy than average. Maybe I'm less sappy than average, but I'm probably more, or at least average in terms of sappiness though. But like, I just mentioned Band on the Run. That album was my father-in-law's. It's not the first pressing, but I don't know, it might be the third. He got it in the 70s. It's a mid-70s pressing. I want to say 75, maybe 76. It's a mid-70s pressing of an album that he got when he would have been, mid-20s. He was still in the military. He was, I'm sure he like goes off the base and goes to a record store on a day off and like, boom, he buys this album. And it's older than his children. It's older than my wife. It's older than my brother-in-law. And, he's had it in his possession since then. And who knows how many times he probably hasn't played it in 20 years or 30 years. But, the first 10 years he owned it. Like how many times did he play that album and dig it and kind of rock out to it, drinking beers like he does. And thinking about my mom's music in the same way. She's got albums that, in fact, she gave me a Chicago box set that she actually got as a Christmas present. That was like the thing she told my grandparents, my grandparents, that she wanted for Christmas was like, oh, I want the Chicago box set of records. And it's crazy to be passed down something that was like a Christmas present to your mom when your mom was like a teenager. And that's something that she cherished. Like my mom, I don't know, it must have been the 70s as well, early 70s. She's opening this thing up on Christmas morning like, fuck yeah, I got the Chicago album. And then, undoubtedly she's on Christmas Day, she's like popping that thing in and playing it. And so I don't know. I don't even really care much for Chicago. Sorry, Mom. But, just the fact that it is a physical thing that she cherished enough to hang on to it for 50 years or 45 years before giving it to me with the rest of her albums instead of just throwing it out. She was connected enough. And my mom is not a very sentimental. I don't know where I get my sentimentality from, but I don't think it's her, at least towards physical items. But she, unlike a lot of stuff that she simply threw away or gave away, she held on to her records for a damn long time after she got rid of a record player. I don't think she had a record player for 30 years. I think mid-90s, no more record player for Mom. It was too much in the age of CDs and then MP3s. But she held on to it. My father-in-law held on to all his albums. Like, they saw fit to hang on to these things and then pass them down to me. And it's I don't know, it feels almost blasphemous not to cherish that and to also have this sort of personal nostalgia towards some of these like vinyl items. It just happens to be vinyl. With my kids, who knows? Maybe it'll be 4K. They're like, oh, these old, rusty, old, dusty 4K shits that my dad gave me when he died, But who knows? Could just be part of the experience, but okay. I will agree with Chase that I definitely prefer 4K to Blu-ray. Anytime I'm given the option, I don't think there are very many at all cases where the Blu-ray is better than the 4K for some reason. You know, it obviously wouldn't be like native resolution. It would have to go back to something wrong with the master or the transfer. You know, something botched along the way in producing that disc versus like the actual, like, you know, the native resolution or the storage capacity of the physical disc itself. So, I mean, I think most of the time when they release a Blu-ray and they release a 4K, nowadays at least, they're being released kind of side by side. And so, you know, it's the same master, it's the same transfer. Why would the Blu-ray be better than the 4K? I've never seen it in practice. And so I'll always pay a little extra for the 4K because I have a setup that's specifically designed to take advantage of that and to display, you know, a more, you know, ideal, director intended, filmmaker intended version of the movie. Of course, the filmmaker, for, you know, up until the streaming era where everything went direct to streaming, up until the slop era of the 2010s, every single filmmaker intended for you to see their film in the theater. And if you were seeing it in the theater, then it was going to be projected on 35 millimeter. It wasn't even until recently that like digital projection was a thing. So, you know, you went to see a movie in the 60s or the 70s. You went to see, you know, what's some important film? Jaws. You went to go see Jaws opening weekend in the theater. You watched it on 35 millimeter film. The idea was that you would be seeing a very high resolution source, physical media, like a very high resolution, very high quality analog source material. So, you know, the 4K is as close as you're going to get to that at home, because nobody's, I mean, we bitch about shelf space with just a bunch of like discs. You know, imagine reels of 35 millimeter film. That's, nobody's got space for that. Even if you had the wherewithal to project it. I would love a pumping iron 4K. I mean, I don't know if and when, but I mean, I could see Criterion doing it. I could definitely see VS, like Vinegar Syndrome Labs. I think it fits pretty well there. I don't think it fits with the rest of the Vinegar Syndrome lineups, but I do think it would fit pretty well with Vinegar Syndrome Labs being, you know, something that's maybe a little unique for VS. So, I mean, I think any purist is probably right. Like, I think the nature of a purist is that they're like very into their thing and you're not going to talk them out of it. So, you know, the purist is they're the zealot for whatever their thing might be. And the vinyl purist, like, I don't mess with them. I'm not a vinyl purist myself, despite I'm a vinyl guy, but again, it sort of landed on my lap. I didn't choose the vinyl life. The vinyl life chose me. And definitely going to get my vinyl life tattoo across my belly to go with my hipster beard and my hipster beer. That would make me look like a big-ass hipster. Yeah, stopped after the first season of Westworld. I mean, I watched the first season. I don't think I finished the second. I don't know. They stretched it too long. I mean, it was interesting. Some of the twists that they introduced in the first season were interesting to think about. Like, well, I didn't necessarily see that coming. Okay, that's kind of cool. I like where they're going. But I think that's very hard to sustain that kind of programming when your show is kind of built off of suspense, not knowing what's necessarily happening, but needing to being interested enough in the threads to wait it out and to see how they come together. I think works pretty well for like a movie that's 2 hours. For 5 episodes or 5 seasons of TV times 12 episodes a season, 60 episodes, an hour-long television show is kind of a lot to ask, and I think they tend to jump the shark. So I think TV shows do a little bit better with maybe something like Sopranos, where it's not necessarily about the mystery and sustaining twists and turns. It's more about, making something that's cinematic and maybe still following a theme. But, yeah, I think Westworld could have been a single season. I know why they don't do more of it, but I'm sad that they don't do more like just one-off miniseries. Like, they used to do that shit. You guys remember Shogun, the first Shogun? I mean, even the more recent Shogun actually is another good example because it's based on a book. You can't do 8 seasons. My wife and I watched the recent Shogun. I've seen the old one too. I've read the book. And my wife enjoyed it. She's like, oh, I wonder what's going to happen in season 2. And I was like, I got some bad news for you, honey. That's the end of the book. So if there's a season 2, they making shit up at this point because they did the book. And she was like, I remember her being kind of bummed. But I was like, no, that's the beauty of it, though. You get a good season, a good solid season of episodic. Basically, it's cinema. I mean, something like Sopranos, something like Shogun. It's not television like Cheers was. It's cinema. I mean, it's very much produced like a movie. It's just broken up into episodes like a TV show. So, it's some weird love child of the two. But you wind up with something that's, it's longer, so it can be more faithful to like a lot of the subplots of a long book. Like Shogun is a big book. I want to say it's more than 1,000 pages. It was a very long read. But the beauty of like a miniseries is it never jumps the shark. They can pull off their twists. They can kill off characters, and they don't need to do something cheesy to like keep the actor involved. Like, oh, it's his twin brother, or some shit. Or they built another robot that looks just like that one. They don't have to do any shit like that. So, I appreciate it. I wish they would do more single season, just miniseries. Just do fucking 3 2-hour episodes or hour and a half episodes like It. You guys remember the first It? That was on TV, damn it. And that was some very excellent television movie. And it was just two episodes, I guess. It was a real miniseries. It was great. I don't know. I wish they would do more of that because they could do so good. The Entity, that's a tough one. This is what I've heard. I've heard the last time. I haven't even seen it just because, I mean, why? I presume that there's nothing there for me. And, yeah, I heard it wasn't very good. So, I'm like, way to sell it, guys. But they're going to do another one. And I don't know. They've done Exorcist sequels. They've done Exorcist prequels. Other people have done other unrelated movies that are also about exorcisms. And, they've got like an exorcism found footage movie at this point. I just, it's been done, guys. It's like, if you got something new, then cool. But I don't think you do. So, oh, yeah, I did see that. I think I did see that they were releasing last summer. We'll see how it goes. I mean, I think, problematic movies still wind up getting released. I mean, does Porky's have a Blu-ray? I know Revenge of the Nerds does. So, I mean, one of those things where if there's still an audience, they'll probably release it. I'll do it a little quietly, but, yeah, last summer is definitely one that's on my radar. I think I saw, I don't know, Dawn of the Discs or something on Instagram. So now Late Night with the Double, I would not consider that like with those. I guess that, there was that demonic possession of the girl who was on the show and she had her handler. It's definitely adjacent to like those exorcism movies, but the exorcism wasn't really part of the thing, right? It was more like they did something new with it. They were trying to exploit, or at least the main character was trying to exploit the the demonically possessed girl. Whether he was doing it for ratings or some other nefarious purpose is also questionable, but it's an example of having something kind of unique to present to us as viewers. And I think Late Night with the Devil was rewarded both for the quality of their production, given what they had, what they did with what they had was very, very good. They definitely get an A for, resources available versus product output. They did pretty incredible. And then I think also, like, it wasn't just novelty, it was a good idea. And it was a very scary idea. It was, I watch a lot of horror movies like most of you guys do. And yeah, they're horror movies. They're quote scary movies, but like, most of them aren't really scary. Like, I watch them alone at night when everyone's asleep in my house. Like, all the lights are off. I'm not like looking over my shoulder, but there are a few movies that will like really be legit kind of scary. And I saw that one late at night in the theaters, and I was like, oh shit, like this is definitely like pretty creepy. Like walking back to the car. I mean, I was with my brothers, but if you were walking back to your car alone at night after seeing that movie in a parking lot, an empty parking lot, you'd be like, shit, dude, like it's kind of freaky. So definitely, I think they did a good job with that. Being a possession film, but maybe not a straight exorcism movie. Yeah, I mean, I don't even think I watched the prequels. I was interested in the prequels, especially the one by Paul Schrader, but I never saw it. I thought it was interesting that they've restarted, like, how so many false starts on Exorcism. Like, remember they did the Exorcism prequel, the Exorcist prequel, and then like a year later, they like redid it, like same actors and everything, but they're like, it was like straight up like, yeah, that didn't really work. Let's go back to the drawing board. Like, they didn't wait 15 years or whatever. They were just straight up like, that was our mulligan. Let me take another swing at that thing. Like, near immediately, it was like just a couple years later, they came out with like, here's the Exorcist Dominion. It's like the redo of it's like a partial remake. Like, we reshot a lot of it and we re-edited a ton, but we still use some of it, but it's like a totally different plot and movie, and we changed a ton. It wasn't like a director's cut. It was like a very different film from what I've heard, but I was like, whatever. I just wasn't, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? I think Vinegar Syndrome, I mean, they might change their tune a little bit, but I remember hearing that, after My Chauffeur, apparently they had it was rough. The sales on that were rough, and they just decided we're not going to do more comedies. I think it kind of scared them away from the comedy is what I read, and I don't know if that was speculation or if that was based on, something someone said. So, I think the comedies are going to be few and far between for Vinegar Syndrome because, as much as I'd love to see it, because there's just so much good, like the VSA line being a line of films that are, supposed to be films that you would have rented circa late 80s or very early 90s at a mom and pop video store. I mean, a lot of those movies were comedies too. It wasn't just action. It wasn't just B-rated or horror movies and stuff. It certainly wasn't Hong Kong shit like Descendant of the Sun, because, that wasn't at your video store in suburban Georgia, like Marietta or, Gainesville, Georgia, or something like that where I lived. It was ridiculous. So anyway, I thought the original Conjuring was pretty good. Remind me, I mean, the original Conjuring was another one that I thought was legitimately pretty scary movie. My wife and I watched that one, like in the basement of her parents' house. Way back in the day, we were in the basement of her parents' house and we watched that, and we were like, everybody was asleep late at night. And we were like, oh shit, like, like pulling the covers up, pulling the blanket up like that and shit. Like, oh my God, I'm like, quick, it's really scary. You're scared. I'm scared. Just jerk me off real fast. Like, here, give me a hand job real quick. Try to talk her into give me a hand job to like break the tension. Didn't work. Too bad. But, it worked out okay in my favor. We had 2 kids after that, so that was good. Yeah, do what Eli says. Just everybody just do what Eli says. I cannot believe it is 12:45. Pope's Exorcist, is that good? I wanted to check that out because, you know, like Russell Crowe. Like, all right, he's like an actor. He's even doing like a fake accent and shit in this one. I'll check that one out at some point. I'll see if it's on Netflix or some shit. Cinematograph, put out The Gambler with James Caan. Yep. I need to check that one out. I wasn't aware that James Toback was the writer though. I'll have to check that out. I'm interested in that one. Late Night with the Devil was good. I have to completely agree. A New Leaf, Last of the Red Hot Lovers, and Married to the Mob. Yeah, I think, you know, I'm not familiar with A New Leaf, and I'm not familiar with Last of the Red Hot Lovers. I am familiar with Married to the Mob. And I think those are all, I mean, I guess you could call them comedies without someone trying to fight you, fist fight you. I don't think it would go to fisticuffs. But I think there's enough, like, other stuff going on in those films that it's like they're comedic takes on, but they're not like straight comedies. Or am I wrong? Because I'm not familiar with A New Leaf or Last of the Red Hot Lovers. So if they're not, they may not be like straight comedies, like you know, something like The 40-Year-Old Virgin and Waiting, are comedies that we've talked about a lot tonight that are like, they're comedies, right? Like Cinematograph isn't really going to touch Waiting, you know? Even if they could, they wouldn't. But like A New Leaf and Last of the Red Hot Lovers, it feels like there's enough other stuff going on in those where it's not just straight comedy, but it's like maybe there's some satire, maybe there's some, you know, there's obviously New Leaf has Walter Matthau, so there's some, Alan Arkin, I believe, is in Last of the Red Hot Lovers, so, and Married to the Mob has Michelle Pfeiffer. Anyway, there's enough like notable actors in there too to appeal. So, oh man, this is a good question. The first person to ask me a question. I've posed question to you people, but this is the first person. Official cinematic trash. Thank you for the excellent question. A label that I refuse to collect. I don't have any labels that I refuse to collect on principle. So there's no one that's offended me enough that I just decided they don't want my money. Like they told me to go fuck myself or something. I don't. I have some Severin. I have a little bit of 88. I will admit a bias towards U.S. domestic releases over imports, just as a general rule. And that's mostly because, yes, I have a region-free Blu-ray player right now, but region-free 4K player right now. It plays other region Blu-rays. But what if I don't always? And what if it doesn't work for that particular disc? Because my understanding is that it's, you know, yeah, it works most of the time, but there's no guarantees, obviously. So my thought is always I would prefer, if I have the option to buy a U.S. domestic, I would prefer to have the Region A Blu-rays for special features. And I do like ripping my Blu-rays. I'll rip Blu-rays over 4Ks because the file size is so much smaller for a Blu-ray. I'd much rather rip the Blu-ray. So I'll buy a 4K Blu-ray combo and I'll watch the 4K on my TV, but then I'll rip the Blu-ray because it's just a smaller file size to work with while still being HD. So yeah, I mean, there's nobody that I don't buy out of principle, but I don't really buy imprint. I don't think I own any imprint. It's not a principled stance, so I reserve the right to maybe buy an imprint in the future, or if I found a really good deal. But they haven't had a lot that has interested me, but like their Never-Ending Story box set, I came really close to pulling the trigger on, but, you know, it was an awful lot of money after, you know, converting to US dollars and shipping and stuff like that. I mean, it was an awful lot of money for one movie, even if the special edition was like over the top, like amazing. It was still a lot. So, yeah, imprint is probably the one. I don't really, like I said, I don't really refuse to get anybody's shit. I just don't have any imprint. I don't believe I have any Umbrella. I'm not even taking a principled stance against Second Sight, but I will buy Ignite over Second Sight simply because I view Ignite as being the non-aggressor in that particular relationship. I think Ignite Films acted in good faith, And I think that if anybody acted in poor faith, it was Second Sight. I think the retailers are probably, when it comes to legal liability, I think it's probably retailers that are mostly going to be the ones holding the bag. If a company that owns territorial rights to a film wanted to get litigious and hire lawyers, they might be able to go after Second Sight, but since they're based overseas, it's a little tougher to sue someone who doesn't do business in the United States technically, and who does business in the United States really only through like retailers. So, I think at the end of the day, it may happen at some point with Vinegar Syndrome and Ignite and Second Sight and some of this conflict that we've seen. And there's even Shout Factory doing City on Fire, but then licensing the transfer to Arrow, and Arrow maybe doing their own new things to it, and then releasing it, and then people in the U.S. importing that. And Shout doesn't really seem to give a shit, because I think they're just a little bit big to worry about a few sales like that. But Vinegar Syndrome's obviously not too big to get pissed that people were importing Cannibal the Musical instead of buying the DeGosser version. So at some point, probably there will be a lawsuit, but I think the people holding the bag will be the retailers, who are they're the ones who are selling the product that's technically not supposed to be sold in the United States. And I think somebody like Second Sight could just be like, we didn't know. This guy registered in the UK, and we didn't know that he wasn't selling these in the UK. We sold them to this dude, and we had no idea that they were going over to the Orbit website and being sold over there. So I don't know if it's just, I think it's going to fall on the retailer for selling the contraband technically. So even then, I'll buy something from the Second Sight again, like The Hitcher was obviously clearly superior to the Region A release, Blu-ray 4K release of The Hitcher. So, in cases like that, I will obviously choose the overseas non-domestic version. But yeah, there's no label that I refuse to collect, because if they release something I'm interested in, that's what directs my purchases. So Dirty Work was a straight comedy. Yeah. And it was one of the better boutique Blu-ray releases of the year. So, yeah, I can see them doing more after Dirty Work as well. I think that sold very well for them, so much so that they increased their limited run by, I want to say, they went from 8,000 to 10,000 because it was just selling so strongly out the gate. So that may influence their release of more comedies, at least more, Dirty Work, I think, over another comedy that they really recently released. It was a cinematograph technically, but Joy of Sex was like a teen, sex comedy. Maybe a little lesser known than Dirty Work, even though Dirty Work was not it wasn't a big box office in 97 or whenever it came out. But I could see them maybe trying to get their hands on some more stuff like that. I would like to see more. Frankly, I would love to be wrong. I'd love to see them do more comedies. I loved Dirty Work. I loved their release of Dirty Work. I remember watching Dirty Work and just thinking, holy shit, this movie has no right to look this good. Why does this fucking movie look so good? This is Dirty Work. This is Norm Macdonald. This was a movie people shit on. I saw it in the theaters. I remember people shit on that movie. That was sort of at the tail end of that whole, Adam Sandler was huge, and Chris Farley was huge, and David Spade was also big, and Norm was kind of on the tail end of that with Dirty Work, and by the time Dirty Work was released in theaters, Farley had already passed, despite being in it a little bit. I think he had already passed by the time they released the movie, and it was just, I think it came out at a time where people were like, okay, the humor is sophomoric and childish, and we've grown out of it a little bit. And even Adam Sandler, I think, wisely continued to sort of develop his comedy a little bit more maturely. I think he softened out a little bit with Wedding Singer and then Big Daddy. And then he's doing Anger Management with Jack Nicholson, of all people. So, I think even Adam Sandler saw the writing on the wall and sort of tried to broaden and diversify a little bit and go in a little bit different direction, and not just do I'm a 25-year-old slacker comedy. You can't do that forever, right? Because you're not 25 forever as an actor. So Dirty Work was, I can't believe it looked that good. I'd love to see some more shit like that. I agree. Yeah, Conjuring. I watched it with my wife, but we were by ourselves in the dark at late at night, and everyone's asleep. Um, I like Deaf Crocodile on paper. I have not. I haven't seen any of their shit. I honestly haven't really been very attracted. A few of their releases kind of intrigued me a little bit, but I think another thing about Deaf Crocodile is that since leaving OCN, they have, I don't think they've been as well distributed. So I've never really had a chance to, I never see their stuff in Bull Moose, for instance. Like if I saw a Deaf Crocodile title in Bull Moose and it was pre-owned and it was a reasonable price, it might entice me to jump. And then if I liked that, I might buy more. I might say, oh, that was really good. I really like the transfer and I like the special features and I really appreciated the presentation, the packaging and stuff. But I just never really had that chance with Deaf Crocodile. So that's a label that I'm like waiting to fall in love with. I guess I'm waiting for the opportunity to get to like sample them and try them out. But I do hear good things. Yeah, I have not got that Nice Guys box set. But there's no Nice Guys 4K in the U.S. Yet, is there? So I've definitely been close to pulling the trigger on that a few times. I've got the Blu-ray with a slipcover. So, I rewatched it. Actually, my mom was in town last August for a visit, and she had never seen it. And I was like, holy shit, this movie's right up your alley. So we watched it together, and we watched the Blu-ray, and I'm like, am I going to watch this movie again? I just watched it August of 25. Like, am I going to watch it again in a year? Probably not. 2 years, 3 years. I mean, maybe 3 years. I might watch it. I might show it to my wife has watched it before. So I don't know when I'm going to rewatch Nice Guys. I know I will. I don't know when. So I'm like, I might just wait and, save the dough. Anyway, guys, it is now 1 a.m. And I want to say that I very much appreciate you for hanging out with me. I didn't think I would go this late, but there was just enough like people hanging out and going in the chat and shit to talk about that, why not go till 1? But it is now 1 a.m. and we have been going. I can't believe I've been talking for 3 straight hours, but yeah, I have. And I appreciate you guys for hanging out. I love the fuck out of you people for doing that. I can't believe I milked this beer that long. I've actually got like 1 sip left, so I've got a little bit to chug at the very end of this live stream when I say peace, and I'll catch you on the flippy dippy. So again, hit the buttons if you haven't. If you have, you're here at 1 a.m. You've probably hit the buttons. I love you. I hope you guys sleep well. Fall asleep watching something good on TV tonight. So I will catch you guys on the flippy dippy. Have a nice weekend. I can't believe tomorrow's Saturday. I'm going to get up and eat some crunch berries with my kids in probably about, if I'm lucky, about 6 hours. Hopefully I'll get lucky and get about 6 hours or so. Thank you guys for hanging out. Peace sign. I'm going to drink the last sip. It's only going to take a second. I'll see you guys on the next one. Oh, that Bissell's good.